Morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are live. It is Friday, May 1st. Welcome to the month of May. We are here, fifth month of the year. We are done with April. I've got my voice back. And it's time to talk about the global capital equity markets. How is everybody doing? It is Friday. I'm yelling, and I probably shouldn't be yelling, but I also can't help myself from yelling, to be honest. I'm feeling a lot better. Thank you, everyone who reached out yesterday. Honestly, I don't know. 8 hours of streaming kind of got to me by the morning when I woke up yesterday, and I couldn't talk. Like, I tried to talk, and I couldn't talk. And like, I wanted to talk because there was a lot to cover. We had a lot of big tech stuff to cover. S&P 500 all-time highs, as we talked about last night on the market close. Apple absolutely crushed it. We'll talk about Apple, Zeta, Reddit, all those companies that did well. But yeah, yesterday morning, I was just like, there's just no way I'm going to be able to really try to talk. So once again, I've been reminded how much I need to take care of my voice, but we're back. We're here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We've got so much to talk about. I cannot believe that we are done with 4 months of the year. After May, we're going to be halfway through 2026, and we'll be in June, which is a little unbelievable to me, but nonetheless, it's what we got to do. We have a lot to cover in the stock market every single day, no matter what month it is. And it's been a pretty successful April, quite frankly. S&P 500 ended at an all-time high yesterday on April 30th, and we'll talk about kind of why that happened. But overall, big tech earnings this week, which was incredibly important, I believe set up the framework, hopefully, for the next leg of this bull market. It also potentially could be setting up for a framework around a pullback to this bull market, given how well the equities have reacted. Maybe not the big tech equities. Meta falling 10% was a little crazy to me, but we're going to discuss kind of both perspectives going into the month of May and then get ready for what we could expect going into May. So got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Mary says, I missed you in the morning. My workday was boring yesterday. Dude, my workday was boring too. It was just weird. I went back to sleep and I woke up and I didn't know what was going on. And I was so out of it. Like, I mean, I don't usually sleep in 11, 12, 1 p.m. sleeping. So when I woke up, I was just like, what is happening? Like, I felt so lost. And so doing the show every day kind of keeps me in my routine and allows me to keep going as well. Frogger, what's up? Marie, good morning. We do have Palantir earnings on Monday as well. That's going to be super important. So we're going to be talking about Palantir today. I don't think we're doing like a Palantir weekly episode preview. Again, the guys just across the world, very hard to get them to come all at one spot and be able to, spend some time. But I think most of us will be there for Palantir earnings on Monday. So that's going to be very important. And we'll see what we've got going on. Desiree, hello. Cycle Time, Livia, Brian, what's up? Chiefy Bonkers, Legacy Zero, Eric, G-Man, Kathleen, good evening from Singapore. I will be at Singapore soon. It'll be exciting. Very excited for the Singapore meetup. Also, Chicago meetup. Once again, I'll link it. It's literally happening in 8 days. So I'll put the link right here. If you want to show up, it would be super fun to see people. And then Singapore, June 27th, will be very exciting. So looking forward to that. Works 1 8-hour shift and then has to take a day off. It wasn't just an 8-hour shift. It was an 8-hour shift of nonstop talking, which I've done before, but I don't know. I think I was yelling way too much yesterday with all the big tech earnings, and it just became too much. Lewis, what's up? Tesla Granny, Teddy Grant, what's up? Mark, Eric, Sid, Johnny, Juggernaut, Chuck, Laugh, First Trillionaire. It's the best name ever. First Trillionaire. Who knows? Maybe Elon's on the path to get there. Maybe. We got to talk about that Elon Sam Altman update. So we will get into that as well. And we'll see what we've got going on. Please make sure any future paid time off is approved beforehand. We will leave this as a formal warning. Next unapproved absence will result in a performance improvement plan being implemented. The amount of comments on my community post yesterday about how you're not allowed to take a day off or, this wasn't approved by management. It was top tier. It was hilarious. Also, you had a hot date last night with Grindr, which is why your throat is hurting. I mean, it's unoriginal. It's funny. It's been said too many times. So we got to get a little bit better with the originality of these jokes, but the management ones were very good. So not too bad. Charlie, Rick, I'm Benny. What's up? All right, let's get into it. So first of all, before we get into any of the sort of core big news that we got to talk about, earnings, Iran updates, which we have a couple, and actually it's helped oil prices come down, which is also very good. That's another reason the S&P is holding on to all-time highs. We're actually at 103. We were at 105 yesterday, down from 108 a couple days ago. So we're seeing oil come down above 100. It's not good, but below kind of key levels that we had over the past couple of days is good because it's on the right side in terms of going down. I think in general, what did we get out of this week? We had 5 companies that needed to crush: Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, and Apple. All 5 of them absolutely demolished in a level that really is, it's hard to find the words to explain how well they crushed. Now, their stock prices did not all crush. A lot of those stock prices, Microsoft, Meta, and Amazon in particular, getting hit even after they got a little bit of a bid. But Google, the street loved, it was up 10%. And Apple is up 4% right now in the pre-market. And we'll talk about what happened with Apple. I think this chart right here is the sort of thesis of the week. And quite frankly, I think the chart you're looking at right now, which is the total cloud backlog in the 3 major hyperscalers, AWS up 93%, 364 billion, Google 465 billion, up 398%, and Azure 633 billion, up 97%. This is why there is not an AI bubble. And I just think the narrative around an AI bubble, we've been talking about it for the past year. You have Michael Burry's out there really claiming that it's all going to collapse. I'm not saying certain stocks aren't overextended, because I think they definitely are, especially in the chip space. Like there's certain names that are just catching a bid for the hell of catching a bid. You could even say that a company like Google, which probably deserves to get up 10%, maybe is a little overextended right here. And maybe it should have been up 5%. Amazon should have been up 5%. Maybe the love should have been kind of spread out from this market. But you cannot say that these companies fundamentally don't deserve to have any type of premium. And you also can't say these companies are not going to be much more valuable than what they are today. I mean, Google might overtake NVIDIA at the pace that it's going at. Amazon inevitably is going to get to that $4 or $5 trillion market cap. Meta is probably going to get to $3 trillion. And Microsoft, been a disaster for the past year. It's up 3%, but Microsoft probably is a $600 stock. So I think the fact that the cloud backlog is as strong as it is, the RPO growth is as strong as it is, the operating margins across cloud are incredible. Again, Google Cloud growing the fastest at 63%, Azure at 40%, AWS accelerating to 28%, and it has the largest base because it was the first entrant into cloud back in 2006. That is your simple thesis for why AI is not a bubble and why people are spending on AI infrastructure. Cloud revenue is growing, and the ecosystem of cloud means that there are companies, enterprise software companies in particular, that are paying for these models, paying for cloud infrastructure on top of those models in order to be able to run their workloads. And as a result, they're seeing the AI, the ROI from AI. And that doesn't even get into the robotics discussion, the self-driving discussion, the consumer chatbot discussion. There is so much to this AI narrative, but the cloud thesis is what the street cared about. It's why Google caught a bid. It's why Meta's getting nothing, because they don't have a cloud apparently, and the street doesn't care about advertising. But it does mean that these stocks are, proving incredibly well in terms of what they needed to do. So I think the biggest thing is, if you are a bear, or if you know someone who's bearish and you're constantly having debates back and forth with them, you just have to show them the big tech earnings and say, look, these are not small 4, 5, 2, 3, 20, $40 billion companies. These are multi-trillion-dollar companies growing at growth rates that startups grow at. Quite frankly, a lot of these companies are growing faster than startups, which is just unbelievable at the base that they're trading at. Google, for example, didn't do any buybacks this quarter for the first time in 4 years, but the stock's up 9%. Why? Because they reinvested that money instead of buying back the stock in the business. It resulted in growth, and the street decided to buy it up. So I think that's the first takeaway from what we got this week, which is a really good end to April. The reason the S&P 500 is at all-time highs, even if your favorite stock is not at all-time highs, is because the broader market is starting to broaden out a little bit more, and big tech is justifying that the premium the market has, at least based on those earnings, is justified. Now, is the market a little extended? Sure, one can make that argument. Is it a little overvalued? If you look at certain ratios on the broader indices, yeah, you can make that argument. But if earnings growth continues to deliver at the level that it's delivering at, I mean, one could argue that S&P 720 is relatively cheap in a year from now if these companies continue putting up numbers and you just keep the same PE ratio, which is about 23 on the S&P, and the likelihood of this going higher seems like it has a better chance. So that was the kind of first takeaway in terms of earnings, and we'll get into some of the specific earnings as we get on throughout the show. The word for how well they crushed is bigly. They definitely crushed in a big manner. Now, look, I know Meta stock didn't really reflect it, but Meta also crushed. I'm getting a lot more interested in Meta at these levels. I mean, for this to be the only name that is not getting any love, I mean, even Amazon got a little bit of love. Microsoft at least got a pump to 430 before they took it back down to 404. Now it's at 410. The funny thing about Meta too is if you looked at where it bottomed at yesterday, 600 on the dot. Like, you're telling me the market makers really let it stop at 600? They did, like, it couldn't have gone to 599, 99. No, they had to. I mean, it felt a bit manipulated yesterday, and it feels like people are accumulating because regardless of how you feel about the CapEx spend, those results do not warrant it to get hit as hard as it is. But regardless, all these companies theoretically should be much higher years from now as they continue to prove the thesis. Tesla right there getting a bid, 383. In the pre-markets, up a little bit right now, 0.61%, as that is also getting a little bit of love. Okay, so before we get into specific earnings, Iran, we had some news this morning from Iran. That's why oil prices are down. We also had some Fed speak that we'll talk about, but the headline of Iran is, as per Axios, Iran gave response to the latest U.S. Amendments on the agreement. Oil is moving lower after the report of the Iranian response to the U.S. Treasuries are also recovering as oil prices drop following the Iran news. We don't know exactly what Iran said around their response to the U.S. agreement. The U.S. responded to what Iran sent them a couple of days ago. But 10-year right here, 4.386, that's still pretty high, but at least it's coming down a little bit. It seems like the market is interpreting it as positive that Iran is working in a way that allows them to send their version of the negotiations and the U.S. sends their version. So like they're talking, which goes back to what I've been saying over the past couple of days. I really don't think we're going to go back to bombing them. Now, maybe there's a world in which we have another military strike to put some final pressure on them, but I think the blockade is already being relatively effective in getting them to realize, like, hey, they can't hold all their oil on one island at some point. They're going to need to open the strait so that the blockade can be over. And as a result of that, maybe that is what gets oil prices to come down. Now, maybe I'm totally reading this situation wrong and oil is in a horrible situation. And in the next 6 months, we're going to have unprecedented levels of inflation and there's going to be a supply shock and there's going to be a lot of different issues with oil. Maybe that's how the story is going to play out because, quite frankly, markets were at all-time highs back in 2020 and people didn't really see inflation coming in 2021. I mean, it ended up happening, but it wasn't like the biggest story in the world. Some people saw it, obviously. Our Federal Reserve did not see it. So maybe we get a crazy amount of inflation in 2027. It just feels like if oil is the majority of the reason for that and oil prices at least calm down, even if they don't go back to their lows, inflation shouldn't be the biggest deal in the world. But not trying to undermine how ugly the situation is, just the market perception of it, obviously via price action, has not been the worst thing in the world. So we will see. It also begs the question, oil at 103, S&P's at 720. Is this a clownish type of market? How can the S&P pushing all-time highs when oil is at these levels? Obviously, oil is the central input for everything for the economy. And I think that's a fair point. But then you look at Google's cloud growth and you're like, wait a second, do I really want to not buy stocks because oil is up? And theoretically, given the pain that we felt in March, the answer should be yes. Like, I'm just going to wait until oil calms down. But I think the earnings were so good by big tech that the market is ignoring it. Maybe unfairly ignoring it, but for now, the price action shows that the market does not. I mean, we've had a pretty ugly week of oil spiking almost 10% intraday on Sunday, and the market still didn't care. Futures ended up going green on Monday morning. So from that perspective, it's almost like the Iran war has been fully priced in, but time will tell to see if that continues to be the case. Knicks in 6, dude. I saw the halftime score last night they were up by 50 points. At one point, I think they were up by like 80 points. 140-89. Shout out to the New York Knicks. I mean, maybe these guys have a shot this year. They always make us think they have a shot, but that was a hell of a way to end out the series. So there you go. Knicks in 6. Let's see. All that to lose to OKC in the finals. Yeah, honestly, it's going to be tough being OKC. But we'll see if we can get there. I agree. The Robinson injection was bogus. Absolutely was bogus. But I saw the halftime. I was like, this is not real. Like, they can't be. But it ended up being real. Okay, so let's talk about some of the earnings that we have today. That was the oil news. That was the big tech stuff. Let's start off with Apple. And then we'll talk about software because we had some software names crush it, which I think is helping IGV this morning. Apple demolished earnings from the perspective of guidance. So the quarter itself was fine. It wasn't anything to go crazy about. They missed on a couple key metrics like iPhone revenue, but the reason for that was because of supply constraints. So Timmy Apple, on the call yesterday, we listened to some of his last call, and basically he said, look, we had a phenomenal quarter, but we cannot keep up with the demand, particularly on the Mac Neo, on the Mac Mini, and the iPhone. And as a result of that, the misses have been happening due to supply constraints, particularly around memory, not issues around demand, which I think is relatively bullish. The reason the stock got a 4% move is when they guided for Q2 and they're guiding to 17% revenue growth. No one can say Apple doesn't grow anymore. You just can't say it. For the past 4 years, the revenue growth was like 1%, 2%. Literally, the revenue was like barely inching up. You can't say that anymore because now you've got an Apple that's guiding for 17%. Maybe you don't want to pay 35 times for 17% growth, but there's a lot of other companies in the stock market where people are paying way more amounts of premium for way less amount of growth, and they're not as solid of a company that they're not buying back $100 billion worth of stock like an Apple. Apple got upgraded across the board, just like Google. Google and Apple got upgraded almost unilaterally across the board. I think the Apple price target average is now like 330. Google is around 415. Meta got downgraded across the board. There was a couple of them that raised it, but Meta's price target went down. No one said to sell it, but they said hold it or neutral, which is basically a cop-out way of saying sell it. But Apple and Google upgraded across the board, and that's why you got some more excitement from Apple. They didn't talk about agentic Siri. They didn't talk about the foldable phone. They didn't talk about any of that stuff. All they said is, hey, we are growing the hardware business substantially in terms of the demand that we have for devices, and we can't supply all of it fast enough. And as a result of that, the street got excited to think that Apple's going to keep beating on their numbers. So Apple did what they had to do. This is 7% of the S&P 500. Very important for this stock to go up, and it was nice to see Apple finally get some love. S&P right there at 720 as Apple getting a bigger move. They've joined the bottleneck story with their Mac minis. Yeah. And, the fact that people want this agentic infrastructure locally just means that Apple theoretically could be a much bigger player than we think in that regards to AI, even if it's not sort of the Siri software angle, which obviously could be very important for local inference. Zeta, I think they absolutely demolished it. Zeta should be a $30 stock right now. The fact that the street is not giving it a premium is annoying, but it's also something that I think is technically a gift. I mean, I feel like this is one where you just stack up shares if you believe in the thesis, and over the long term, you will be rewarded on this. This is their 19th quarter of beating and raising 50% revenue growth. How many software companies are going 50%? There's two, Palantir and AppLovin. Like, how many software companies are growing even 35%? Like, there's not many companies that can do, and we're not talking about 50% of like, oh, they did 50 million, 80 million, 90, 120. They're doing almost 400 million in revenue. They're going to end the year at 1.75 billion. Adjusted EBITDA is up 42%. Free cash flow is up 48%. Free cash flow conversion is up 2.7%. They have 189 customers, up 20% year over year, which are their super scaled customers. Revenue increasing their guide. They're probably going to beat this number at 420. Up from 4 million. Adjusted EBITDA, they raised that number. Revenue, they raised by 30 million. They're profitable 2 quarters in a row. Rule of 67 off rule of 40. I just think this is one of the easier bets in the market if the SaaS narrative being dead does not exist anymore, because you've got a company worth $4.5 billion that's going to do almost $2 billion of revenue profitably, and it's growing that at above 35% this quarter. I mean, the highest analyst I saw expectation was 40%. They came in at 50. So next quarter, they're guiding for 36. What if they come in at 45? Or what if they keep it at 50? I mean, I think this was a great quarter. I think under 20 is very undervalued. Under 25 is probably, a spot where loading up still doesn't necessarily cause that much concern. And the narrative around SaaS, if that's changing, which has kind of been the only overhang on Zeta outside of the sort of TTD marketing plays that have gotten hit, I think it's relatively cheap. Another stock that absolutely crushed it, Reddit. Absolutely demolished these earnings, up 13%. Now, Reddit's not up as much as it. So Reddit was basically 162 last week. So people think that, this is a 13% move on Reddit, which is good, but it also fell to 147, which is why it's getting a bump right here. So, if you compare it to where it was last week, it's not up that much. But the point is, it fell much lower. I mean, under 150, a lot of people are wondering what is going on right here. What's the issue with the narrative? And then boom, they put up these numbers, and the numbers absolutely crushed it. Reddit, I think it also deserves a pretty nice premium, and it's already had a premium, but the premium now, if you believe in the growth metrics which they are putting up, which just look at these numbers, I think Reddit probably should get a little bit more love right here. Revenue growth 69%, EPS up 677%. Daily active uniques up 17%, 126 million. ARPU at $5.23. That's up 44%. They are guiding to 45% year-over-year growth for the entire year. Adjusted EBITDA at $295 million. Gross margins of 91.5%. They spent $1 million on CapEx. I mean, they're not really spending money on CapEx. CEO said Reddit is a one-of-a-kind business powered by deeply engaged communities and authentic human conversation. The foundation is driving a rare combination of growth, affordability, profitability, and efficiency, and giving Reddit a unique advantage in the age of AI. I mean, very, very strong numbers. And those numbers, along with Zeta, I think were strong. Does this mean AppLovin will crush? Yeah, I think probably. This is going to mean AppLovin crushes. Now, if AppLovin doesn't crush, then it would be a little concerning around what's happening in the advertising sector. But remember, Google and Meta also crushed, and those are your biggest advertising plays. So it makes sense that Zeta, Reddit, and an AppLovin are probably going to do very well. I know people don't like the product around Reddit, which is fair. I mean, I don't use the product either, but there are people that do. I don't use Zeta's product either because I'm not in corporate enterprise B2B marketing, but I mean, these guys are doing $500 million of revenue every quarter at this point. So you're starting to see that growth spurt hit on a lot of these companies that are not that mature. And as a result, they're getting that premium. ServiceNow, 2.16%. Now, the reason IGV is pumping, which is helping Zeta, Reddit, Palantir, Oracle, all these stocks in the pre-market, IGV right there up 2.3%, is because Atlassian, as you guys corrected me yesterday, is up 19.7%. This stock was down 60% year to date. It probably had nowhere lower to go. And it's getting a bid up 20% as they beat on cloud revenue and they beat on data center revenue. I didn't even know there was a data center component to Atlassian. Like, I had no idea the company that does Jira tickets had a data center part of their business, but they do, particularly around implementing data centers on-prem, not in the cloud, even though they do have the cloud part of the business. And that grew exponentially, which got a bid. And then Twilio, which has also been dead all year, really dead for the past couple of years, that's up 20%. And then Viva Systems, another software player, got into the S&P 500 yesterday. So you had 5 major companies, like not major, but like companies that matter in software. You had Viva, Twilio, Atlassian, to a lesser extent Zeta, and then to a more higher extent Reddit, because it is a relatively large company compared to some of the other smaller software names. All crush their earnings, all get good headlines. And I think that is what created the catalyst for IGV to get a bump of 2.59%, which is why Salesforce, Adobe, Palantir, ServiceNow, et cetera, all getting a bid, Microsoft as well. And maybe the long semi-short software thesis is done. Like, maybe we've had enough. We've had enough of just bidding up all these random chip names because they say anything good about data centers. And we're going back to companies that are actually profitable, producing real free cash flow, have really good margins, even if they're not growing as much as the semiconductor names. Maybe that thesis is maybe to change. I don't know if that's true. We're going to need to get a lot more confirmation of that. But if we start to see SMH take a little bit of a hit, SMH is down right here, basically at all-time highs, and we see IGV start to recover, I think the software names maybe become a good long going into May over the semis. But time will tell to see if that ends up playing out. Bitcoin, we got a little bit of move, 78,000. There you go, 78,205. And then ETH right here is at 2,300. AMD did get a bit of a move yesterday. It's down right here in the pre-market. I don't think anyone can be too upset. This fell all the way to 309 on Monday. Now it's back to 354, 349 pre-markets. This one is going to be, I think, the most interesting earnings of the cycle, to be honest, because Intel set the stage. Intel did get to 100. It's at 93 again for the CPU server shortage thesis to essentially affect Qualcomm, ARM, all these companies that they say anything about CPUs and boom, they get a bid. Qualcomm up 15%. And then you had ARM, obviously that hit 240. ARM now is at 210. I mean, it got right back to 210 after falling to 198. I think if AMD, let's do a pump or dump on AMD and see what people think. Because obviously, is it overextended? Yeah, I think it's overextended, but it kind of doesn't matter. You could say Intel at 70 being up 200% and Intel just demolished earnings. Maybe that happens to AMD. AMD pump or dump. What do we think? That'll be on Tuesday. We'll listen to the call. We'll see what Lisa Su says. I honestly hope they pump. I don't own a ton of AMD. Obviously, I'm heavier in NVIDIA, but if AMD pumps, it just means the next leg of the AI bull market in the context of CPUs. I don't think it's net negative for any of the companies. I think it's net positive. Also, Meta gets 10% of AMD when they reach $1 trillion. OpenAI gets 10% of AMD when they hit $1 trillion. That 10%, which would be worth essentially $100 billion each to OpenAI and Meta, can be used to invest in the broader AI ecosystem. And AMD shareholders would be happy because they have a stock that's worth $600. So I think everyone would win in that scenario. And if we could fast track that process, I feel like that would be a net good thing for the broader AI ecosystem. It's just Lisa Su's got to really put up some NVIDIA May 2023 types of results to maybe make that next leg up. So I think the fear is it's overextended. It's going to dump if the numbers aren't amazing. Reddit right there getting up 14%, 168. The opportunity is it doesn't matter about the overextension because CPUs are now the biggest thing in the world. So we're going to see what happens with AMD. Palantir right there is at, wow, 143. Yeah, I think all of software finally getting a bid right now. And that's why you're seeing those names get a bit more of a pump. IGV up 2.3%. Anthropic. So it looks like they are getting ready to raise at a $900 billion valuation, which is going to be pretty crazy. Part of the reason they're doing this is because, they are growing. Analysis out this morning, and SemiAnalysis said, we believe, Anthropic hasn't confirmed this, but SemiAnalysis, which has been relatively accurate on their predictions on the AI space, We believe annual recurring revenue on Anthropic now has went from 30 billion to 44 billion. If that is the case, OpenAI is absolutely not in the same ballpark anymore unless they give us some new updated numbers. And, that is why they're getting ready to raise 50 billion at a $900 billion valuation. So that's also part of the reason I think Apple, which got a price target raise from 300 to 310 at Baird. I think Google and Amazon also caught a bit on that on their earnings, just based on the fact that they own 15% of Anthropic. And so the fact that that's continuing to go up, maybe that's a good thing for the broader AI ecosystem. But if that revenue growth is correct, I mean, again, this thing is just not stopping. And that goes back down to the memory plays. SanDisk CEO, they absolutely crushed it. We'll look at their numbers in a second, but he said, we have customers putting up billions of dollars in collateral through various financial instruments that will survive for the life of these contracts. If they don't meet their obligations for consistent purchasing every quarter, that financial commitment immediately comes to us as compensation. Honestly, I never expect to collect those because our customers are extremely serious about needing this product. In the normal case, we sign an agreement and within weeks, we're having a conversation about how to increase the amount of product we can provide. It is a very dynamic market. What did SanDisk do? Well, they basically said this AI memory ecosystem is not slowing down at all. I mean, these numbers are just kind of unbelievable. They beat by 60% on EPS, $23 versus 14 expected. Revenue, they beat by 27%, 5.9 versus 4.73. EPS is up 7,000% year over year. Revenue is up 250% year over year. Now, why is the stock down? Well, the thing is up 3,030% in the past year, not in the past 5 years. The past year, April of 2025, this thing was $30. Now it is $1,000, $1,057 pre-market, but it's only down 3%. It's like, it's not even really a hiccup for a company like SanDisk. So I don't know if it means it's a good buy right now, but those numbers, again, it means Micron's probably going to crush. SK Hynix has been crushing. Western Digital basically put up the same types of numbers, massive beat, but obviously the stock was up a lot going into the print, and that's why that one is down 8% as well. So it is very exciting to see this memory ecosystem continue to thrive, and hopefully it doesn't stop, and hopefully it continues. Sachin in the chat, he says, glad to see you have your voice back. Sachin, big congrats to him. He has been preaching the AMD thesis, I think, since this thing was $70, $80. So I'm sure he's got to be loving AMD right here at 350, up 5%. Again, this was a big retail win for a lot of people, and it's nice to see it hold. We just need Lisa Su to confirm what Intel confirmed in regards to CPUs are the new GPUs, theoretically. Not literally, but you get what I mean. And if that happens, maybe this one continues to go up. Reddit right there, 15% pre-market, as that one is almost at 170. Nebius. So they acquired a company today, and it looks like that company is going to be pretty bullish for Nebius. Real quick before Nebius, speaking of OpenAI, the CFO came out and said the Wall Street Journal article was complete BS. And the reason that our internal revenue targets did not meet what we wanted is because of a lack of compute, which is pretty much what I said a couple of days ago around. Now, maybe she could be lying. That's possible. But my logic was, hey, if they didn't hit their revenue targets, it's because they don't have enough compute. And that's why they had to raise 122 billion, not because they didn't have enough demand. Like, it just sounds comical to say, oh, OpenAI can't grow fast enough because they don't have the demand. It's like, the demand is there. She called it a vertical wall of demand. The problem is the compute. So if that's the reason, and the market kind of sold off that day, AMD went to 309, then obviously that was a bad reason. And as a result, maybe that's why you're seeing the market get a bit of a rebound. Nebius, they acquired eGen AI, which is going to be strengthening the Nebius token factory as a frontier inference platform. They paid $643 million in stock and cash. The technology maximizes the number of tokens generated by each NVIDIA chip that Nebius uses, helping the company provide better performance and lower costs to customers. This matters because inference is becoming the fastest growing segment of AI compute demand, and optimization is increasingly becoming the layer that determines performance, margins, and customer pricing. I think this is a phenomenal acquisition. And once again, I think it proves why Nebius is in a different league when it comes to the hyperscalers. The fact that they're acquiring companies that are optimizing the token generation that Nebius deploys in their data centers to make sure their customers have an even better experience using Nebius. I mean, when it comes to beating a Cypher, an Iren, a Wolf, a CoreWeave at getting some of these deals, now there's enough deals for it to go around for everybody. But when it comes to the, one of the companies taking the lead, which right now there's two in the lead, Nebius and CoreWeave, these are the types of acquisitions. This is the reason you have to dilute shareholders. These are the strategic initiatives you have to take to get to the next level. So I really like the acquisition. Obviously, the street might not like it because they're spending a lot of money right here, but the stock is up 3%. So the street's not too upset about it. Nebius fell below 140 this week, now at 142. But I think it makes sense. And I think holistically, Nebius continues to be one of the names that really deserves a lot more momentum right here. So there you go. Nebius at 142. Again, kind of making a new base at 140, which is also very strong as well. IGV, that is up 2.45%. Software continues to make a move. This is what Microsoft was doing and how it became so massive. Yeah, it really, one of the things about Nebius is their management team really believes that they should not be seen as a neo cloud. In fact, they reject a lot of that framing. They want to be seen as a new hypercloud or hyperscaler. Now, obviously, they're not at the level like that, but their ambition is to be at that level where they are a cloud in and of themselves, not just a neo cloud. And, they want to have a much more diversified part of the business to be able to stand on their own. We got a politician, trader, Jared Moskowitz. I don't know who any of these people are. I feel like I should know more of our representatives. He bought a ton of stuff. He bought Palo Alto, GE Aerospace, Broadcom, McDonald's, ASML, and he sold Oracle and Caterpillar. He is Florida's representative in the 23rd Congressional District, and he is a Democrat. So bought ASML, Palo Alto, GE, Broadcom, McDonald's. It's kind of weird to just throw McDonald's. It's like all this AI infrastructure at McDonald's. And then he sold Oracle and Caterpillar. Okay, cool. Well, that's what you got from another one of our politicians. Oh, we have another one. Elizabeth Fletcher sold Google, Apple, Lilly, Microsoft, NVIDIA, and Quanta Services. Okay. Bunch of sells. No buys there. Yeah, these are relatively smaller sells and buys. These aren't your Pelosi $500,000 million buys or sells, but that's what you've got going on with some of these politicians. Caterpillar did pump 10 days ago. It actually took a little bit of a dump last month, but Caterpillar has been an amazing data center infrastructure play in terms of what they're building in those data centers. And that continues to make a move. 890, basically at all-time highs, right? Are we? We are, functionally at all-time highs. 896 was that all-time high level. Figma, this one got hit from the Claude model. I know it's up 4% right here. I think that's because of IGV getting a pump. Obviously, it is shorted pretty heavily. A lot of these software names are getting a bit more of a short. Maybe there's a squeeze involved if software really does get a pump. But right now, I don't trust the software pump right now. I'm excited for it. I'm happy for it because I own some of these software names, but I think it'll take at least another week to see if software gets a real pump before we think it is different than the kind of dead cat bounces we've seen over the past couple of weeks. Nokia, interesting thing about them, up 2.5%. Apparently, they are now partnering with Anduril, and the retail enthusiasm of the stock is getting really excited. So Anduril is adding 5G comms to Sentry Towers. Anduril says its new 5G comm Sentry Tower built with Nokia Federal Solutions can deploy in under 3 hours, run without existing power and network infrastructure, and scale coverage across remote sites. I don't fully understand the valuation of this company. I need to do some work on it, but this stock used to be a meme stock, as you can see right here on the chart. It has had plenty of meme runs before. So the idea that retail tries to bid it up again now that they've got a real thesis behind it with Jensen and Anduril and some of these other 5G infrastructure plays using their technology, I mean, maybe there's a world where Nokia starts to come back as well, but hit 1340, now at 1322. It's up from the $11 range that it was at a couple of days ago. Look at that. We got Mr. Garcia in the chat, who now works at Anduril. Super, super cool that he was obviously OG Palantir, if you guys know him from the community. And he ended up working at a company that a bunch of OG Palantir employees started, which is Anduril. So super, super cool. Garcia, congrats on everything. Anduril obviously been a massive success, and they're going to be one of the biggest defense contractors of all time. Firefly, that's up 0.92%. Rocket Lab got a little bit of a bid yesterday as well, getting even more of a bid, 84.45. This thing was stuck at 74, so you get a nice $10 reversal. ASTS as well, 75. This one also fell below 70 at 68, but that one catching up a little bit. Robots, Figure CEO Brett Adcock did an interview yesterday. He was asked about, does the valuation of his company potentially scare him, given it went from $2 billion to $40 billion, which was a very aggressive increase in a year. Here's what he had to say about how to value these robot companies.
the valuation as a risker?
This will build like the biggest business in the world. Like little under half of GDP is human labor in the commercial market. Like they pay wages for humans. We do human work. So you're looking at, we will have the ability to ship, if the robots work well, billions of robots in the commercial workforce. You'll produce, there's like 30 trillion, 40 trillion of wages paid to this, like every year to folks that be doing work. We'll be able to expand that work, automate more, like a lot of it, and continue to scale it up. I think like that, plus the stuff we're seeing in the home, will just build like enormous of tens of trillions of revenue. You'll build something massive. I mean, what do most companies trade at? Tech companies trade at 10 or 20 times revenue. You're in like $10 trillion or, whatever, $100 billion to $1 trillion of revs. Like this is going to be a huge business.
So I know it's kind of, I get he's sounding like he's pumping it. I get it. I understand. He's talking about tens of trillions of dollars of revenue, which obviously would be like many, many hundreds of trillions of dollars of market cap theoretically if you keep the same multiple. But let's say he's only 20% accurate or even 15, but 10% accurate. I mean, the robot space is going to be pretty damn big if Brett is at least right directionally about the thesis. And obviously that's a big benefit for Tesla. And, Elon's no different than Brett in terms of how he speaks about robots. They both think it's going to be a massive, massive, massive industry. Elon's getting to the point where he says, you don't even have to worry about saving for retirement or worry about Medicare or having a savings account because money's not going to matter, because that's how important the AI revolution is going to be, led by physical AI, which are the robots. So if that ends up even somewhat coming true, I think the robotics industry is obviously going to be very exciting to invest in. But when it comes to figure, we've got to see like actual revenue, and we haven't had any real projections of serious revenue that they're collecting. They are starting to produce almost 100 robots a week is what Brett said, which is amazing. Tesla's probably going to be trying to do like 10,000 robots a week with their manufacturing. But if they can get that to scale, that would be very exciting. Tesla right there, 383.90 in the pre-market. Chad says, is that a wig today? Thank you, Chad. I appreciate your analysis of my hair. My hair is, we're just trying to figure out the hair. It's just going through it. We had the hat, long hair, no hat, short hair. We're all on the journey together trying to figure out. Now that we are in May, a lot of people have been asking, is the sell in May go away? Take a look at this stat. 23 of the past 25 times the S&P 500 was up 5% or more year to date going into May, saw the rest of the year going higher. Now, on average, May returned about 0.5%. 2026, we're up 5.3% as of the end of April, which was yesterday. 2024 was 5.6%, and then May ended up doing 5% return. So 64% of the time, May is higher. Do I think May could get a little choppy given how much we've run? Yeah, I think it's hard to be like, well, everything's just going to pump another, S&P is going to go up another 5% in May. Especially because, again, in April of last year, we fell 30%, which is why we had so many months of a rebound. I mean, it was a pretty ugly fall. This time we fell 8.7% peak to trough. So it wasn't as ugly, even though it felt that ugly. And maybe as a result of that, we aren't going to get that massive May. But it also means maybe we're not going down 5% as easily. And maybe it's not a literal sell in May, go away type of situation, especially when you have the street upgrade all these price targets. SanDisk now $2,000 at Susquehanna, $1,700 at Bernstein. I mean, even with the stock down 6%, which you would think, hey, maybe in May, SanDisk takes a breather. All the analysts are like, well, this thing has 40 to 50% more upside. And, maybe that means that in May, you're still going to see a lot more excitement across the board on some of these companies. NVIDIA, we had a headline for them yesterday. That wasn't the best headline. I think that's why the stock fell to 199. Huawei's AI chip sales are surging in China as NVIDIA loses ground, with Chinese tech firms placing large orders for Huawei's Ascend 950 PR processors, and the company is expecting AI chip revenue of around 12 billion this year. They have sold about 750,000 of these chips in the past year to date. So in the past 4 months when it comes to Huawei. This is why Jensen was trying to tell Dwarkesh on that podcast, you can't keep saying that NVIDIA shouldn't be selling in China, because if we don't do it, Huawei or other chip companies are going to get the lead. And if they get the lead, that's obviously going to be very bad for NVIDIA, as the American tech stack is not going to have the ability to be the default architecture for all these different companies. Obviously, Jensen is biased because he wants to sell more chips, but I think he also has a legit argument. But you are seeing some of the chip companies get some speed. And I think I couldn't find out why NVIDIA fell yesterday. I think that was the reason. Now, the reason was reported after hours, but we know in the stock market, someone always knows. So I think some people got news of the information probably during the day, and they knew that would be a tailwind or a headwind. I mean, I don't know if that can really keep NVIDIA down, but that might have been the reason why it was down 5%. NVIDIA right there, 201.45. Let's see if this one can get a little bit more of a breakout. We had some other earnings today. We had a couple earnings yesterday, so let's just review those real quick. Roblox, they missed by daily active users 11 million people, or I should say 11 million kids. Street thought they would put up 143. They put up like 132. Not good. 24% down. This platform has been plagued with tons and tons of controversy. So, obviously it's already had a bunch of headwinds, but the fact that, they missed by that many users means kids are playing other products, I guess. I mean, people just, I don't know. I hear anecdotally that people love Roblox, but to miss that badly is not good. So that's why that one got hit. Moderna had a beat by 14% on EPS and had a beat by 65% on revenue. So that one ended up having a good earnings. 63% of you, by the way, said AMD is going to pump. I'll do a green or red poll now in the chat and see what people think today as we enter into May. But most people here are excited for AMD. Outside of Moderna, you had Exxon and Chevron. Exxon beat by 15% on EPS, missed a little bit on revenue. Chevron also missed on revenue, but beat by EPS. Both those stocks are up 30% for the year, so they're not moving too much in the pre-market. But again, you're not seeing these companies really have bad earnings. And obviously, with oil prices up as much as they are, those companies are having decent numbers. 103 on crude. Hopefully, we start to see that come down. Once again, the update on Iran was that they have responded to the U.S.'s proposal. We don't know what the response is. I imagine throughout the day, we'll probably get some leaks on what that response ended up being. If it's something around, hey, we are ready to open the Strait of Hormuz, if we can negotiate on the potential nuclear program and enrichment, then obviously that would be good news. But as of now, that's what we're waiting for. And hopefully we see some more excitement. David says, Amit, can you do me a favor and wish our son Joshua a very huge happy 7th birthday? He will love it as much as he loves ringing the bell. Joshua, happy birthday. I think his birthday's on Sunday, right? His birthday's on Sunday. I love it. 7 years old. 7 years old. You are becoming much older now as you have lived 7 years on this planet. Joshua, thank you for watching with your dad, David. He's awesome. He's in the chat every day. Hopefully you guys have a great birthday. And hopefully we get a green day for your dad who cares about the markets here so we can continue to be happy for you. And hopefully we get some green momentum as we begin May. So happy birthday to you, Joshua. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your dad for being here every day. And once again, folks, as we enter into the month of May, Friday, 9:30 a.m., the stock market is now open. Can't mute on the first day of the new month. You just can't do that. Gotta wake up. Gotta wake your asses up. All right, let's get into it. Nebesis, 142. Nebius getting a 2.87% pump after their acquisition. That is green. Figma, that's up 6.5%. NVIDIA, 201. That's up 0.71%. Palantir, she's moving. She's moving. That is green. Very nice to see it right there. 144.55, up 4% on the day. Palantir, let's see if we can get above 145 as we have the print on Monday. Adobe, that's up 2.5%. Adobe was 220. Now it's at 250. Nike, 44.75. MongoDB up 5%. Software is crushing it. Salesforce up 5%. ServiceNow is probably 4 to 5%. ServiceNow, 91.98. That's up 4.16%. Ondas down 2, Aero Environment down 1, Kratos down 1, Lemonade down 0.2, Robin Adventures that's up 3%, likely because of OpenAI potentially getting some more momentum as well. Seagate, that's up 0.11, whereas SNDK, that stock is down 3.5 even after they beat earnings by 80%. The stock was up 70% going into the print, so that's why that one's probably taking a little bit of a breather. Salesforce, wow, 5.29. Finally, software getting some love, baby. Getting some love. It's been a while, but maybe the street likes it again. NVIDIA, 202. Tesla, 386. That's green. Rocket Lab flips green after going slightly red from 84 in the pre-market, but 82.69. Atlassian, it deserves it, 22%. It was down 60% going into the print. They absolutely demolished earnings. You would imagine this one catches a bid, and it is indeed catching a bid. Reddit, up 14. Where is Apple? Do we have 282? 281. It hit 284 pre-market. Let's see if we can touch 282. We hit 283 last night as well. Again, beat on the guide by about 17%. That's why the street liked it. And that's why you're getting some more love. Zeta, can we break 20? 1941. I believe this thing should be above 20. Let's see how the street ultimately treats it. 1944 is what we've got on Zeta. NVIDIA going for 203, which would be very, very nice to see 203. Oracle, are we going for it? Oracle 168.65. This is also technically a software name. So it's data center, it's software, but it's both together. Palantir right there, 145.50. Palantir just absolutely smashing right here and really getting a level that it needs to break out through that we've been waiting for. Roblox down 21%. That one getting a hit. Bitcoin, is that up 78,000, 78,300? You've got that green on Bitcoin. SanDisk, just a massive, massive reversal now. Look at that green candle that popped in. Again, I don't know who sells it off on those numbers. You can't sell this company on those numbers just because you think it's expensive, because those numbers, I mean, they're unbelievable. Now, if you want to take profits, that's a different question, but expensive companies stay expensive for a reason. And one could argue SanDisk is not even that expensive when you look at their forward PE. So I would expect this one to potentially get a full reversal, and that would obviously be very good for Micron as well, as that could get a bit of a look at that. Micron going green. Micron going green on the day. That one 517. CRM up 4.5%. Figma's up 6%. That one short 25%. Intel once again catching the bid 95. Where is Qualcomm? That's at 174. That's actually down 2.4%. Intel once again at 95.44. Grab. Are we getting hit here? We are getting hit 3%. They do have earnings on Monday. C Limited slightly green. How about Nubank? Nubank is also up about 0.24%. So you're seeing a couple of Amazon's also getting hit and Google's getting hit. Broadcom's getting hit. Meta once again getting hit at 611. So you've got about 4 to 5 different names. Robinhood somehow going green. Did not expect Robinhood to go green. Bloom Energy, obviously, that's taking a breather. Snapchat's up 1%, probably off the Reddit earnings. The street like Nokia up 1.7%. Reddit losing 167, DAC down to 165. Again, Reddit was literally 160 last week, so not much of a change. But if you bought it last night at 144, then maybe that's why that one's going green. Duolingo is at 112. That's also up 2.5%. So little confusing market. Certain parts are just bloody red, or at least not getting any love, even though they had some pretty good earnings. Other names trying to reverse off of a decent earnings. And then software, I think, is the winner today. Palantir 145, Oracle 169, Zeta not really getting a huge pump, but at least it's getting something there. And then Apple at 281. Apple at 281. Lilly, are we? Oh yeah, Bitcoin's moving. That's probably what's helping Robinhood. Yeah, that's a fair point. Lilly 974. Lilly introduced a drug this morning, I believe, in the GLP space. I'll get the exact headline, but that I think was one of the reasons why it got some love. I'm not sure why Grab's getting the dump right here. Maybe it's a pre-earnings dump. That is a pretty ugly 3.9% candle to the downside. You're seeing some of these other names in their sector also get hit, but software is really getting the bid. Nebius as well, up 3%. That's moving. Galaxy, NeoClouds, are that moving? Galaxy, yup, 4%. Why is Google dumping? Well, Google was up 10%. Also, this is, I wouldn't say it's dumping, 381, but it is, $4.6 trillion company at this point, so probably taking a breather after a massive, massive week. Bloom Energy down 3%. Roblox, I mean, there's an easy reason to explain that. Missing by 11 million users. I mean, like, what happened? Why did people stop using Roblox to that extent? I mean, I know they have issues, but 11 million users not using the platform was quite surprising. Wow, look at the S&P, 7,200, baby. 72 freaking 100 right there. 72.32 is what you've got on that name. Zeta as well, taking a dump. I mean, this was almost at 20, back down to 1888. Unfortunately, just not holding on to its gains. Not holding on to its gains. Reddit as well, still up 8%, but couldn't hold on to the majority. Roblox, the guidance, yes, wasn't also good for Roblox. Or let me pull up the exact guidance on it, but I think the DAUs is what really hit them the most. Rocket Lab starting to dump now again. Shopify, this should be catching a bid because of, there you go. That's up 5% because of IGV. This is also a software name. Qualcomm is, I looked into Qualcomm, guys. I understand it's gotten a bid, but there's a couple of very important semiconductor analysts I follow, and I'll send you their report on it. They were like, this is the most unbelievable pump they've ever seen on a company, just because they said we're entering the data center space. And you've got to believe the smartphone marketing is bottoming, because that's the other reason they pump. Because if smartphones are bottoming and there's going to be more demand for smartphones, then Qualcomm theoretically should do very well. And basically people are calling BS on that. And they're saying, how could you say smartphones are bottoming? Like, what innovation is there to get people super excited about smartphones again? So, and then you have to really take them on their word, CoreWeave up 4%, that they're quote unquote entering the data center with a hyperscaler. Like, that was the extent of the analysis they gave, and the street just bought it up. So maybe that one holds on to it, but there is a reason Qualcomm's been flat for the past 5 years. And if this is the turning moment, then you've got to really believe that this is a turning moment for that stock to get some love. Hood right there, 74.35. AXTI, that's up 17%. AAOI won a contract in Texas yesterday. That's up another 3%. So the photonics play is getting some more love right here. Poet is down again, 4%. Roku was up. Wow. Roku was at 130. Now it's at 117. Gave back all of the love, unfortunately. Atlassian still up 25%. Coherent actually had an upgrade this morning to 455. That's why that's up 331. But all your photonics plays because of AXTI and AAOI's new order, I think, gave the street some love. Okay, Lilly came out with Ozempic pills. And that's why, or actually not Lilly came out with it. Novo Nordisk rebranded their diabetes tablet as Ozempic pills in the US, and I think that's pumping the entire sector. Novo should be up as well. Yep, Novo's up about 3%. Lilly's also getting some of that love. Reddit, 163. The Qs, are we green? The Qs, 671. That is a new all-time high for the NASDAQ. 25,000 for NASDAQ. 25,000. Pretty incredible. Pretty freaking incredible. S&P and the NASDAQ just not slowing down. SPX right there, 72.46. Nabia Street likes the acquisition, 145.39. SoFi once again goes red, below 16. So the only reason Hood is pumping is because of Bitcoin. Otherwise, Hood would probably be down with the rest of fintech that's getting smacked right here. Meta, barely green. I still don't think this thing should have fell on earnings. I can understand the street being upset with CapEx, but to take it down 10%, growing 33% is quite incredible. Meta right there trades at less than 19 times forward earnings. S&P 722, Twilio's up 17. Viva got into the S&P, that's up 10%. Broadcom back above 420. Zeta, unbelievable, about to go red, but what do you do? The street doesn't like 50% growth, I guess. 1868 as that one continues to be weak. Reddit 165. I mean, I get Reddit's growth was better than Zeta and much higher quality company, but I also think Reddit maybe just has a better narrative than Zeta around consumer AI applications. And that's why this pump is getting respected. Now, again, Reddit is up $5 from where it was last week. It's just, it fell so much that the pump looks bigger, but at least it is a pump and the earnings are getting some type of respect. IBM 233, that's up. Tesla, are we getting a move? No, not really. 382. That's not giving us any love right there. Down from 387. Where's AMD? 356. Wow, AMD going for all-time highs again. Even the dump in the pre-markets to 345 wasn't enough to hold it back. 357. I think this is all-time highs, right? Yeah, this is all-time highs. We just hit 358 for a millisecond, but there you go. All-time highs once again for AMD. I think this is like the 5th all-time high it's done in 2 weeks. Rubrik, that's up 7%, down from 80. But that is up. Coherent as well, up 3.5%. So first 11 minutes is definitely more in favor of the bulls. The VIX is also down at the lowest level it's been in about a month. VIX right here is at 1665. Wow. So that one's starting to come down. Palantir continues to get some love right here going into the print on Monday. Obviously, the street's going to have to continue to believe that Palantir crushes it, but also creating a bit of margin of safety, because if it goes to 147, 148, then it falls 5-7%, it goes back to 140. Who cares? But if it was at 140 and it fell 5-7%, we would be in the low 130s. So maybe this is creating a little bit of a cushion based on the earnings. 146 right there, up 5%. Tesla 381, Zeta 1879. The Qs 672. SoFi once again still down. NASDAQ was up 15% in April, best monthly performance since April 2020. S&P up 10% in April, best gain since November 2020. This was the third best month over the last 15 years when it comes to April. Third best month in the last 15 years, April 2025. Intel was up 114%, strongest month in the firm's 55-year history. Google was up 33%, strongest month since October 2004 when they went public. Obviously, April was just a massive, massive month, but you had to, be in certain names to benefit from that type of excitement. ASTS and Rocket Lab both going red. NVIDIA holding on to 202, kind of. And we are still holding on to green on the S&P. Why is Zeta down? Didn't it have good earnings? Yeah. You could say the same about Meta, unfortunately. This is the toughest part about trying to analyze the market and try to put the pieces to the puzzle to understand how the conglomerate of aggregate information is thinking of what's happening. It's just tough. Meta, I don't think deserve to be down. Zeta doesn't deserve to be down. Grab doesn't deserve to be. A lot. SanDisk theoretically does not deserve to be down. I get it, the stock's up a lot, but man, oh wow. As I say, it does not deserve to be down. SanDisk makes a recovery. The market is at least giving SanDisk some love, even if they're not giving everyone else some love. Wow, talk about a 996 to almost 1100. Absolutely incredible to see that rebound. NVIDIA's earnings is in about a month. It's towards the end of May. You cannot hold back the memory stocks. It just feels like, look at Micron, 507 to 528. If memory continues to be as important as it is, I guess you don't hold back memory. I guess you don't hold it back. Look at that. 5-30. Unbelievable. Julian, thank you for the $200 super chat. That's very, very kind, man. Thanks for all you do every day, brother. Julian, appreciate you. Thank you for being part of the chat. I believe Julian, if I'm not wrong, loaded up on SanDisk a while ago. And I don't think you've sold it. So it's done very, very well. Even if it was down 5%, if you bought it at 300, 400, 500, you can't be too upset. But the fact that it's coming back just goes to show how much these AI bottlenecks like memory are in control. Wow, look at Nebius Street. Really like this acquisition. Are we going back to 150 on Nebius here? 150. Wouldn't be that crazy, right? This thing was well below the 140s for about a week right here. Atlassian up 30%. Nebius earnings May 13th. May 13th. Savici says, I'm in SanDisk sub 70. My goodness, dude. Congrats. This thing went public at 35 last year. Literally, people chase private investments to get a 10x, 20x, 30x. SanDisk was the public investment that did it in less than a year. It's unbelievable. 1100 right there as that flips green. Zeta is still trying to hold on to its green. And then NVIDIA, it's trying to hold on to 202, but you're not getting it right now. Did we get PMI? We did get PMI. I don't think it matters that much today. Street's loving software and memory right now. PMI 54.5. 54.5 as the Qs are up, oil's down. Street wanted 54. We came in at 54.5. That's a beat. We'll get ISM in 15 minutes. Bullish. PMI expanding, economy expanding above 50. Very, very important. So that's a beat. Palantir 144, Nebius 148.64. Archer's down, Fly's down. Your space names are down. Pershing Square 43. This was supposed to go public at 50. So Ackman did not get the $50 price, but let's see if it can get back there. 43.49. GameStop at 25. Robinhood about to lose its green. Maybe we'll hold on to 73. AMD went red, 358 to 352. So got rejected. at 358.30. Wow, Reddit losing 160. Yeah, the pump on this felt a little like it felt just, don't get me wrong. I think Reddit probably deserves, 170, 175 on those numbers. And that's a premium. But I mean, like based on that growth and those gross margins, you would get a premium. But the pump didn't feel like it was going to last as easily. Now, maybe it comes back, but just given how it acted going into the print and then given how it, pre-market's already started selling off, the street's not in love with the ad names right now. I mean, the fact that Meta got sold off, Reddit, Zeta, they're kind of in the same bucket. We'll see what happens to AppLovin, but at least it's holding an 8% move. AppLovin 461. Status still green. Yeah, maybe some options manipulation. Like, be fair. Did Roku, which is another ad play. Yeah, this one lost all of its pump as well. I mean, all the ad names continue to lose their pump, which is annoying. Google's the only one that held it, but I don't think it's because of search growing at 19%. I think it's because of cloud. Like, one could argue the street's not buying Google because of search or advertising. It's literally because of the cloud business, which is kind of crazy to me because it's like, yes, the cloud business is great, but the cloud business is building infrastructure for AI. So the ROI is coming from other companies that are using that infrastructure. It's not literally AI. Meta is like legit using AI to enhance their core business, and the street doesn't like it, even though they're spending more on CapEx. And I get it. There's only ads. The street needs more than that. We've been saying that for the past couple months now, but for them to be that upset about it was, I don't know, it was a bit weird. It feels like Meta should not be punished this much. Apple, 283. 283. Let's see if Apple can continue making a move right here, up 4.5%. As that one continues to go green. What do you expect for Grab on Monday? I think Grab's going to have a pretty solid quarter. The Taiwan acquisition of Foodpanda obviously was very important. They made a lot of headway in terms of operating margin flexibility. The financial part of the business is going to probably show another 50% year-over-year growth quarter. It's just, once again, SoFi had an amazing quarter, but it's not part of any thematic that the street cares about. Zeta has an amazing quarter, but street doesn't care about advertising. You would imagine Reddit goes back to 200, Zeta gets up to 25 on those quarters, but street doesn't care. So I wonder how good the quarter has to be for the street to even give it some love versus how much they pile into AI data center infrastructure. Now, maybe that changes if software catches a bid and fintech catches a bid and street shorts semis for the next month. But then when you look at the SanDisk numbers, and Micron's probably going to crush it as well, it's hard to imagine the street easily rotates from one sector to another sector. Apple's all-time high is 288. 288 is what we got to get to get above that. Wow, the 10-year above 4.4. Even with oil down, street's selling off the bonds right here. 4.4 on the 10-year. We don't want to see it, but the market doesn't care. Market doesn't care. What do you think about Palantir earnings? I think Palantir will be incredible. Once again, though, unfortunately, Palantir is not in the sector the street cares about. You might say, well, Palantir is AI. The street cares about that. Well, Palantir, given how much we've seen it fall due to ServiceNow and Adobe and IGV, it's not just AI. It's more software. So I think they will demolish, and they will have to demolish to once again prove to the street, just like Atlassian or Twilio did, that a software company should, not be just seen as a dead company due to Anthropic. But they're going to have to put up really, really strong numbers to break that narrative, which I have faith they're going to do. I just don't know how the stock's going to react if they do that. Nebius touched 150, got rejected, now at 149.30. Amazon, are we dude? So I didn't do the open yesterday, but I mean, how did people react when they saw Amazon go from 272? There's that candle right there, to freaking 258 on the open. I couldn't believe it when I woke up, and I was like, really? 275 to 258 within like less than 5 minutes? It's pretty incredible. Now we're at 266, but once again, it's almost like the street defaulted to Google as the core Mag 7 play yesterday, and everything else just didn't get any level of excitement. Micron, I think that's a new all-time high, 535. SanDisk as well, new all-time high. Cannot hold back the memory names. It was Bezos selling. Well, we didn't get his Form 4 yet, right? Maybe we'll get it today. It felt like it was someone that just sold so much right at 275 at the open. Like literally by 9:32, it was down. If I was live when I saw that, I would have been like, that is unbelievable. Intel, almost 97. NVIDIA is red. Yes, I don't know what's wrong with NVIDIA. Someone tell me what's wrong with NVIDIA here. I don't know. SanDisk and Micron. This is the confusing part about the AI market. SanDisk and Micron, I get it. Massive earnings growth. But the fact that they are making the thing that goes into NVIDIA, and the only reason they have demand is because of NVIDIA functionally, and NVIDIA not catching any level of a bid or being able to hold on to even 200, but these guys hitting new all-time highs. Here's the thought experiment that I said last week, and I think is really important. If Micron goes to $1 trillion, which right now Micron's at 600 billion, how many people believe it can stay at $1 trillion? Like, it can get there, but do people believe Micron will be $1 trillion company for the next 10, 15 years? Because if you're buying it here, unless it's a trade, you have to believe it's going to $1 trillion, right? Why would you buy it at 600 billion unless, if you're going to sell it at 700 billion, okay, but there's other trades that can get you that type of percentage move. You have to be buying it because you think it's just going up. I mean, SanDisk, I understand actually at 150, maybe there's more alpha. But what, SanDisk is going to be a $700 billion company and it's going to stay there? I think that's the bigger question. I don't know how many bulls, even the Uber bulls, really feel that it can sustainably hold that multiple for a long time, or would that multiple come crashing down on any sense of memory pricing sensitivity to the downside? Whereas a lot of these other companies just way more predictable to imagine their revenue. But all the street has targets at $1 trillion, on SanDisk, Micron. So it's not like the street doesn't think they can get there. Meta 612. I do think, though, that once again, the analysts are annoying, dude. The fact that they all downgraded Meta after they were so bullish before the print, Meta spent 10 billion more on capex, and that caused the downgrade. Like, that to me was just, it reminds you that the sell side, like, they're full of crap. And I'm not saying that because I don't think Meta deserved to get a little bit of a hit, but that their entire thesis changes because Meta spends 10 billion on capex, not because growth slowed down, not because margins were bad, not because free cash flow was negative. All that was factored because they spent 10 more, but they flipped their tone. Like, so, all the bullish analysts on some of these other bottleneck names, if there's any hiccup to the thesis, I wonder how quickly they switch, and then their institutional clients end up feeling like they got to sell. Nebius 151 back up to 151. Kyle, thank you for the $50 super chat. Appreciate it. Thank you for all the videos and live streams. You have helped me on my new journey. I'm new to this all 3 months in. If you had $1,200, where would you place it? Thank you again. Kyle, appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Happy you are part of the community and being with us every day. In terms of allocating $1,200, with that type of money, I would usually pick one name to start developing a position in, right? If you had $120,000, a little bit different. You probably don't want to go all in one name, but with $1,200, I think it's reasonable to say, hey, what is one name I believe in that I want to start a position in? And the reason I say that is because we had one of those guests on the Basis Points podcast who, he's a hedge fund manager, and he even recommended retail should pick stocks because retail gets excited when you're invested in a McDonald's, because you believe you have part ownership in McDonald's, versus it's hard to get excited about the S&P. And if you're not excited about this game, it's really hard to succeed in this game. It really takes a lot of passion to continue playing it. So I would pick a name that you really care about, that you think is going to be here for the next decade, study more and more of it, and then allocate some capital. And the Mag 7, I think, are all amazing opportunities as well, because there's a lot to learn about each of those companies. Amazon right there, 268. That flips green, up 1.3. Personally, I do think Meta is really cheap. And so maybe that 1,200 into Meta to start off your journey is not the worst idea. And then you get to learn about a company that the street discounted, and you get to find the asymmetry potentially between the street's interpretation and your interpretation of the company. Qualcomm down 2, Shopify up 5, Bitcoin trying to get 79. That's getting some love. Bitcoin getting a move right here, 79,000. CoreWeave, 120. That's up 8%. That's up 8%. SoFi just flipped green, which is nice. That was almost below 15 or 16. Nokia, are we getting a pump? 1346. Retail, I think, is driving it up. 22 million shares on Nokia. NVIDIA back to 200. Trying to at least kind of hold on to that. Micron, I think SanDisk was your catalyst right there. Micron 5% now. I don't love that Micron's pumping before earnings. But then again, maybe earnings is going to just be the cherry on top to the entire story right there. But we've seen this happen last time with Micron, and it got hit on a really good earnings. So Just might have to be cautious if you're doing an earnings play on that. Zeta back below 19, Apple 283, S&P 723. That is a new all-time high. That is a new all-time high. Micron has earnings in June, by the way, right? I think it's like June 24th, so it's also a while ago. So it's actually not going to be there for a while. And we might have to see until Micron gets up their numbers. Palantir 144, Tesla 383, the Q's at 674, Atlassian 8779, AAOI 172. As that continues to go green. Yeah, late June is when they report, right? Yeah, so we've got some time to see that. Intel 9743. Goodness. Oil continues to drop 102.70. Someone also just bought 5 million of calls on the Qs. So you got some nice call inflow coming on the Qs. Silver's up. I know a lot of people don't talk about silver anymore, but that one back up 3%. The silver trade kind of ended in what was it? In January. But we are still seeing some bid. Gold 46.25. That's up a little bit on the day. Nebius continuing to make your move on that acquisition. 150. CoreWeave up 7. Iran, is that green? Iran is also green, 3%. At least that's up 3%. VG getting dumped. VG down 4%. That is getting dumped with the oil prices coming back down. NVIDIA barely holding 200. This is crazy because NVIDIA hit 218 the other day, right? And like, I don't know. That was after Intel earnings. It's not like the street rotated all their money out of NVIDIA into these smaller chip plays. But Intel, by the way, Intel is a $500 billion company now. $500 billion. Maybe this one is also inevitable that it goes to $1 trillion. STX, Seagate, 718. That's up 7%. Wow. Seagate was 580 going into the print. 720 on Seagate. Following SanDisk and Micron. At this rate, Micron has a date with 700. Not because Seagate's 700, but if you look at the percentage gain that Seagate's had and you apply that to Micron, Micron's probably closer to 700, 750. If that holds up, my goodness. Intel's more than AMD. Intel's at 492. AMD is at 580. So Intel's about 100 billion more than Intel. Estee Lauder had earnings today. That stock is up 7%. Okay. Kevin Warsh has got to be pretty happy about that, given his wife is probably up a cool couple hundred milli today. Revenue, they beat 3.7 versus 3.6 billion. EPS 91 cents versus 65 cents. The guide 245 versus 222 for Estee Lauder. Iran at 3.5%, Nebius at 9.3%, Silver 3.68%, CoreWeave 8.5%. Wow, CoreWeave moving. And Western Digital, my goodness. Well, this one basically has a duopoly with Seagate when it comes to HDD memory. So it makes sense that this one's moving with Seagate. Is this all-time highs for Western Digital? SanDisk actually spun out of Western Digital last year so they could, focus on different products. Look at this chart, dude. Is $50 April 30th, 2025, 442. Yeah, this is all-time highs. This is all-time highs. Amazon almost back to 270. The streets maybe giving it a little bit more love than it did before. Iran up 3, Nebius 8.8, ISM, we should be getting that right now. SanDisk up 4. I guess the 7% down move was a head fake yesterday. You just can't hold back. Can't hold back the memory names. Here is ISM. Getting that right now. Let's see how the street reacts to that.
Headline number to come in of over 53. A bit of a disappointment. 52.7. Now, it is the fourth consecutive number over 50. That's an expansion territory, but it is equal, actually, to the last look. So 52.7 back to back. And those numbers are the best since the summer of 22, even though it is a little light to expectations. Prices paid going the wrong way. Expecting a number around 80 comes in all the way up to 84.6. equals April of 22. To find a higher number, you're back to March of 22. On new orders, it is now the fourth number in a row over 50 in expansion territory at 54.1. Light to expectations, sequentially higher than 53.5, and 54.1 would be the best since February when we were almost at 56. And finally, on the employment, and keep in mind, a week from today, we'll have an employment report. This has been the weakest part of the PMIs, 46.4, well below expectations, sequentially lower than 48.7. It's the 31st consecutive number in the employment index component to be under 50, and 46.4, that would be the lightest going back to Dece of last year when we were at 44.8. So employment is an area we'd like to see a little bit stronger as we are in this sort of no hire, no fire environment. And I would like to point out rates are higher on the day, higher on the week. As we sit, we're up 3 on the day, up 10 on the week, and a 10-year.
Street doesn't care. Small miss. Street doesn't care. Apple up 5%. 284.74, almost 285. Google flipping green, 384. And then Amazon finally back to 270 like it was yesterday before it got hit. Micron, 540. SanDisk, 1150. Once again, the memory names not stopping. Nebius 150 as well. I mean, Nokia is still moving. We got a lot of green on the board. Meta goes red again. Unfreaking believable, but Meta's down. That's why Reddit's not really getting a bigger move either, I think. Palantir losing some of its mojo. Is IGV selling off? IGV selling off again. I mean, it's not red, but it's almost like in the pre-market, software got the bid over semis, and 30 minutes later, semis potentially getting the bid back from software. And you're seeing that across the memory names. Intel, almost 100. Almost 100. Meta is incredible, dude. I mean, it's unfreaking believable to see how that one got hit. GitLab right there, 2305, up 4%. Duolingo, that's up a little bit. Oracle up 168. Salesforce and ServiceNow. Look at ServiceNow. It's almost going red. This is why you can't trust the software pump as much as you want to. And trust me, I want to trust the software pump because I think it would be healthy for the software names to get back. You know, IGV's down 20%. It would be nice for IGV to be only down 10% this year. It's just not happening every time they make a run for it. Space also getting hit again. ARM, the fact that ARM is back at 213 from 198 means SMH, as it hits a new all-time high, is that the semi-trade, you thought it was over in the morning, and it's proving that it's not. As quick as it went down, it came right back up. Microsoft back to 411. This was at 416 as software sells off. Even Twilio selling off a little bit right there. MongoDB as well was up 7. Now it's up 4. Snowflake at least still up 4%. Yes, this one got hit the worst, though, over the past week. Fed President Logan, the Fed shouldn't give guidance implying easing right now. The next move could be a cut or a hike. Economic outlook is very uncertain right now, increasingly concerned about returning inflation 2%. I do think we should be listening to some of the Fed members a little bit more seriously when they say the next move could be a cut or a hike. I don't think they're going to hike, but is it crazy to say that if inflation keeps ticking up because the oil situation has not really gotten better, like it's come down, but the fact that it's above 100 is not really getting better, means that the Fed might seriously not be interested in cutting anytime soon, and a hike would be disastrous. But if that happens, I wonder how the market reacts. I really wonder how the market would react to that if it goes through. Intel 9850. And what reminds me of this is, again, 2020, everything was great, but we had inflation under the surface. 2021, it came to fruition, and then 2022, we dumped. I don't think the inflation is going to be that dramatic again, but what if for a couple months it really does come back? And just because, again, we have the oil issue, even if the prices of oil have come down, and if that affects different industries, then obviously that wouldn't be the best thing in the world. Maybe the earnings right now are overlooking that, though, and that's why the market doesn't care. If they hike, I can't even imagine what Trump would do, especially if it's a Kevin Warsh-led hike, which, who knows?
he is a bit hawkish. I don't think he got put in the Fed chair to hike, but he's going to have to convince all the Fed governors to believe in not hiking if he doesn't want to. 271.50 on Mr. Amazon. On Mr. Amazon, NVIDIA stuck at 200. Would you buy SanDisk if you had massive FOMO? I would not. But those earnings, once again, I understand why it flipped green. It's one of those awkward positions where if you FOMO into it and it goes down, you can only blame yourself. If it goes up, you're technically like correct about the thesis, so you should be rewarded for it going up. But it's not like you can easily enter assuming that the chart is just going to be on your side. Same thing with the Micron at 542. That's why it's tough to just make a decision about that. Now, granted, ServiceNow at 88 is probably a buy, right? Because it's down 50% after a great earnings. But if SanDisk is the one that catches the bid, even if you buy it at all-time highs on an explosive chart versus ServiceNow on a very ugly chart, and the market rewards the winner over the perceived loser, then, which is basically what's been happening all year, that could be how this narrative plays out. Adobe goes red. Software pump could barely last 30 minutes. Bitcoin 79, Bitcoin just under 79. The DRAM ETF, yes, is also another way to kind of play it. But again, the DRAM ETF is based on prices that are at these levels. So if you buy it here and then those components in the ETF go down, the DRAM ETF will go down. So it's the same thing, although it's not picking one individual stock. I do not know why Grab's getting hit today. Honestly, I'm not sure. It could be just pre-earnings sell-off, which tends to be actually more bullish than the pre-earnings rip. But down 4% is weird on that. Some of the other international plays are getting hit today. So maybe the dollar pumping a little bit, which it has been all week. Poet's still down 2.4. BMNR still getting hit. Amit, do you think rotating some of the AI gains into something that's safer and lagging on the year, Meta, Microsoft, et cetera, is a good idea? Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think if you're up huge on an AI infrastructure play and you've made a big return, double, triple, even 40, 50%, rotating into something that's safer like a Meta, even if it's not going to have the same alpha as a Micron. From a risk management perspective, I don't think that's a horrible idea at all. Given Microsoft, Meta are giving great opportunities to, once again, be part of the most important companies in the AI revolution, even if they're not making the HBM that goes into the chips. I would argue they're still pretty damn important. Salesforce up 1.5, Oracle up 4. Yeah, I mean, that's also fair. The Japanese yen move that happened yesterday was very weird. The Japanese, once again, are buying yen and trying to not manipulate their currency. It's basically manipulating it, but trying to get it to calm down, which probably could have caused some pain in NVIDIA and the other tech stocks because a lot of people are short the yen to go long US tech names. So kind of yen carry trade 2.0, but not as aggressive as what we saw in August 2024. Quantum also got a bid yesterday. D-Wave is now down 2.6. What do you think about the S&P adding Viva Systems? I like that the S&P, I don't know much about Viva. I think it's a strong company in the software space for healthcare, but I'm just happy the S&P added a software company. And once again, reminded people that like these are important companies that deserve a premium. Viva also was rumored to get in for the past 5 months. So it makes sense that they inevitably got in, up 10% right here. But that also helped IGV get some love. Oh yeah, there was news about Meta pulling out of New Mexico. I think Meta's threatening that. I don't think they're actually going to pull out of New Mexico, but basically they said the New Mexico regulations are making it impossible for them to keep their service there. That's kind of what they said about Canada a while ago, and they didn't necessarily pull out of Canada. Yeah, Meta threatens to shut down Instagram, Facebook in New Mexico if the judge orders impractical protections on these kids. This is based on the $375 million civil lawsuit that they had back in March. I don't know. Maybe that's a headwind. I still don't think the stock deserves to be trading at these levels, but doesn't matter. Street's not a fan of it. Zeta 1880, Roku 119, AppLovin also losing its pump. It was up 6%. Now it's down, or now it's up only 1. Someone just bought $3.5 million worth of Google 425 calls for mid-July expiry. So you got some option flow coming in for the Googs. At this rate, it'll be at 400 by July. Which 400 is 5 trillion, right? Or is it like 395, 5 trillion? What price do we need? Well, I'll do the math right here. If we take this, it would be 415. 415. 415 gets you your 5 trillion. Amazon 272. Once again, getting your run. Yeah, Grab needs to rotate into memory and data center. Again, it's just same thing with SoFi, same thing we saw with Hood, same thing with Rocket Lab right now in space and ASTS. Like the only sector that the street cares about. The fact that Meta grew 33% and is down, the fact that Microsoft guided for 40% Azure growth and is basically flat, and it's down from the 430s that it was at, and Micron and SanDisk are catching the bid. There's nothing wrong with Micron and SanDisk going up, but the street, Chamath had a tweet about this. The street is rotating from software that got the bid for the past 20 years, and not just like IGV, but like, companies that have really good gross margins, obviously Amazon, Microsoft, older software providings, into the hardware plays to make that software more effective, aka the data centers that make the cloud computing scalable. And obviously that's your Vertivs, your Intels, your AMDs, your NVIDIAs, your Broadcoms, but now your smaller companies like your Western Digitals, your Nebuses, your CoreWeaves, those are catching the bid, which is incredible to see the flip. I don't know how long it lasts, but right now that's the story. Q's 675. 675. Apple, wow. It is $1 away from all-time highs, 288.35. Apple has added how much of market cap today? They've added, let's do the math. 210 billion. 210 billion. Google added 450 billion, so Apple's got some work to do, but I mean, that's what's holding up the S&P as well, Apple and Google. What are people thinking? Nervous, scared, excited? This is good. This is what should be happening. A little toppy. I mean, I think Google's extended, but I don't think it needs to go back to 350. Apple has been stuck below 285 for like almost, 5 months, 6 months? And then Amazon's finally getting a breakout. Maybe that's what deserves to keep the S&P afloat. Palantir is getting hit because IGV is going down again. So Palantir is losing its steam. I'm convinced Palantir trades with IGV at this point. I'm just convinced. Like the only reason it was pumping last night after hours was because Viva and Atlassian and Twilio pumped, so IGV pumped, so Palantir pumped. And obviously it can break through that narrative, at least on earnings, if it delivers massive earnings. But software has got to go up for Palantir to go up, which is very annoying because it's similar to a lot of these other sectors where the leader of the sector has to go up in order for the sector itself to go up. Atlassian up 23. Yeah, same with Reddit. Exact same with Reddit. Why should SAS have all the fun? Let Semi ride for a few years. Well, Semis have been in control, I would say, for the past 3 years, to be honest. But it's not about SAS having fun. It's about SAS just not being this oversold. Like it doesn't. ServiceNow doesn't even have to go green on the year, but getting back to 105, I feel like would be reasonable as ServiceNow goes red. And that's the incredible thing about this price action. Roblox went from down 23 to only down 17. Is that one still is taking a hit? What is causing oil prices to drop? Apparently, a Axios report that Iran has drafted a new peace memo or responded to the U.S.'s peace memo. We got one journalist from the region who says Tehran is going to accept discussing the nuclear file through technical and technological committees with a long-term freeze on enrichment and deferring the missiles and arms files to a later stage. I mean, that's not a full peace deal, but that's at least a start to a negotiation, which is kind of what Trump hinted at yesterday. That's enough of a reason. Oil, are we below 100? We are indeed below 100, 99.5. that is also something that's probably helping out the broader S&P. Trump had a couple of interviews yesterday. Here are some of the things he said as well. Amazon 272.
The second thing is that Steve Witkoff told me on this show is that the United States offered Iran to give them enriched uranium so that for medical and powerful purposes, free, if they would give up their nuclear program. Wouldn't cost them a dime, and they declined that, which to me suggested that they really didn't want a deal.
Well, and maybe it wasn't a very serious offer, because I wouldn't have approved that. Yeah, I wouldn't have. I'm not giving them anything. I wouldn't have approved that. They're going to either have a nuclear weapon or they're not. And if they're not, they're in big trouble. Big. Even bigger than they are right now. And
the second thing is that Steve Witkoff.
Here's the other thing he said.
Looking at the Iran war, haven't you already won? I mean, isn't it? I mean,
we've already won. We've already won, but I want to win by a bigger margin. But we have destroyed their Navy, destroyed their Air Force, destroyed all of their, if you look at their anti-aircraft equipment, their radar equipment, their leadership is destroyed. We've destroyed everything. If we leave right now, it would take them 20 years to rebuild if they ever could rebuild. But it's actually not good enough. We have to have guarantees they will never have a nuclear weapon.
So in Trump's eyes, the war is over. Obviously, the negotiations are what I think would solidify the war being over. But, the street just doesn't know if that's actually in place. Maybe some of the headlines this morning are getting the street to feel more optimistic about it, but that's the issue. Wow, Western Digital goes red, loses the whole pump. 446 to 431. Micron starting to sell off a bit, but still green. SoFi goes red again. Nvidia, just unbelievable that this thing has gotten hit, but 199.50. Where's SanDisk? Are we 1150? We are now 1130. Again, some red candles, still not red. Apple, a couple red candles as well at 287, but still green. Then Amazon loses 272 back to 270. So maybe a little bit of the red coming in on some of these names. Broadcom 420 as well. Intel hit 100. No, it did not. 99.40. 99.40. Amit, did you see the JP Morgan exec drama? It was a fake story. I did see it. The memes have been absolutely incredible. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you can just look up JP Morgan executive. You'll find out the story. It was fake, but it was hilarious. And it went viral. It goes to show how AI news-generated media can completely screw over society, because everyone believed it was real. But my goodness, it was hilarious. It was a hell of a story. Want to buy some JPM stock after I read that story. JP Morgan 315. That's up 0.59%. Amazon 272. Are we really getting a hit today at some of these levels, 1030 slam, or are we going to rebound? Especially on, look at Western Digital now, 1.47, completely selling off. Your AMD as well going red. Seagate was up 9, now it's up 4. I applied for an internship because of it. Oh my gosh. ARM getting back to another pump as well, 215.80, up 2.6. Another piece of news right here. This is the same thing. Someone reposting the Axios article about Iran. Well, one quote: "The Strait of Hormuz is not an international waterway. It is Iran's natural right and Iran's atomic bomb. And we stand firmly and resolutely on this rightful position," as per Tansom news agency. The atomic bomb, Strait of Hormuz. Okay. Zeta back to 19. Yes, a little bit. 1905. Then Reddit, a little bit of a pump as well. The term cannons was interesting. Yes, the term cannons was, I mean, that's what it, I mean, it probably should have, that should have like signaled the story was fake. but man, did it go viral. The Q still at all-time highs. Carvana down after their earnings. Rambus still down after their earnings. Silicon Motion Tech, this was up 40% this week. This one down from 230, but still holding a decent amount. Then Tesla as well, 385. I'm thinking about selling Hood and SoFi to buy more Zeta. Seems like it has more potential. The problem with that, I don't even think that's crazy. The problem with that is Hood, SoFi, Zeta, all three of them, again, are stuck in a sector the street doesn't care about. So I actually don't even hate that idea because Zeta is actually definitively more undervalued than Hood and Zeta, or Hood and SoFi. And they're growing faster, which means the upside at 4 billion might be higher. But it's like rotating from one sector to another sector when the street hates both sectors. That's just, you got to be right on the sector you're rotating into. Now, what would get the street to like fintech again? It's a simple question, or it's a simple answer. Rate cuts. It's a very simple answer. Like if we get some rate cuts, I think the street gets positive on fintech again. But I don't know how we're getting a rate cut this year. I think we might get one, but to guide for 2 or 3 cuts would be irresponsible right now. So I don't think we're getting a rate cut. How does the street like software again? I don't know what the street's going to do. Like I understand macro-wise, the street can go back into fintech if we get a rate cut. Zeta just grew 50%. Like ServiceNow still grew 22%. They're doing $3 billion of revenue a quarter. Like I don't know what the street wants to see from the software names to prove that they're not dead. Reddit grew 70% and it's back to where it was last week. You would think it would get an explosive move, but it's just like not really getting it. So I think that rotating into software just means you have to be patient and believe that there's going to be a shift from semis to software eventually. PayPal 50.57, Bitcoin hitting 100 would also help your fintech names across the board as well, which would be important. How do you feel about Meta? Love the idea of these prices, but concerned the PE will be short in the near term and may have much lower prices potentially. The concerning thing about buying Meta here, even though I think it's absolutely a buy at these levels, just based on pure valuation, is if we do top out in May in the short term, which could happen, Meta's going below 600. Nvidia's going back to the low 190s. Microsoft's probably going below 400. Google's probably going back to 350. Like if we have a real, 3-4% pullback on the market because of whatever reason comes up, all these prices will get a lot better in terms of buying opportunities. So if you don't care about waiting for that, especially if no one even knows if that's going to happen, then Meta's cheap, Microsoft's cheap, but could they get cheaper on a pullback? Yeah. So maybe staying away from the all-time high names is more reasonable, whereas the names that are already beaten up, hopefully they don't get beaten up even more if we do get that pullback. Reddit 165, Robinhood 73.70. But agreed, Meta's absolutely a buy. Like I was talking to a couple people about it yesterday, and they were like, "This is just a no-brainer. Like this is just, you just buy it and hold it, and the street eventually will come back to realizing Meta's an incredible company." Intel not 100 yet, 99.64. It looks like it's getting ready to get there. Why would 3% be a pullback? Well, on the S&P, I mean, technically, I know 5% is a pullback, but 3% on the S&P would get at least 10 to 15% on most of these individual stocks that have rallied so hard. But look at the S&P, up another 1%, 724. At this point, 730, which would be 7,300, is on the way. That's where Tom Lee is calling a top in his analysis. And he thinks we then have a 20%. I just couldn't imagine a 20% retracement after hitting 7,300. And and all of this bull momentum dying out. Like I just can't see that happening. It would just be so ugly. So freaking ugly. We also probably have end of month rebouncing that's happening today and yesterday as well. That's how spikes work. Okay, but 20% down from 7,300. 20%. Like I get 7-8%. I even get 10% back to those March lows, but lower than the March lows. It's like, what's the catalyst? Or is it just valuation? Are we just fooling ourselves that the valuations are normal right now? Like put in the chat, do we all think the valuations are normal across the market right now? Is Bloom trading at 40 times sales normal with not that much profit? $80 billion market cap. Micron, almost half a trillion or more than half a trillion, 600 billion. Is that normal? Because then you look at the PE ratios on a lot of them, and Micron at 5 times forward. I get the whole cyclical thing, but that doesn't seem euphoric. It's not like Micron's at 30 times, even with the cyclical narrative. Then it would feel pretty, but then it would be like a $2-3 trillion company or something. But I don't know. Are some of the valuations just fake here? Valuations are elevated, but not crazy. S&P PE is 24. Yeah, and I mean, that's why the earnings growth is so important to be able to make sense. The average is 21 times. So for us to be 3 derivatives higher than that means that earnings have to be good. And even Apple, the company that doesn't grow, had good earnings. 6,300 retest next 2 quarters. Dude, that would be so bad. That means Meta's going back to, 500. Palantir's going back to 120, 6,300 pullback. Not saying it's not possible. It'd just be ugly. Nebius 150. 150. Tesla 387 up 1.5. Nucor, that was a steel company, right? They crushed it on their earnings as well. 226. That is up. I think we had Mr. Ives right here talk a bit about Apple. He's continued to be bullish on this one. Here was his take on the Apple quarter.
Tell me more. What is the AI strategy at Apple?
Look, I think that's what we're going to find out at WWDC. But I think with Gemini as a partner, it's going to really start what's going to be a subscription service when it comes to the AI strategy for Apple. The consumer AI revolution is going to go through Cupertino. We think this could ultimately be an incremental 10, 15 billion per year of services. They're firing on all cylinders right now. In terms of iPhone growth, services, Turner's obviously taking the baton. A lot of focus on WWDC. I think it's going to be a golden age for Apple as they finally monetize the consumer AI revolution.
What's going to be a positive use of CapEx, Dan, given the fact that we did see a big increase in R&D and this pledge to potentially have the optionality to use their cash for some sort of investment in the future?
Yeah, look, at least in terms of investments, they've almost been light on CapEx. And you could say that's actually been a positive for them. I continue to think with Turner's at the helm, they're going to be more acquisitive. That's another thing that's important. It's been missing as part of that DNA in Cupertino. When you look at the AI strategy and you look at the install base, they have things that no other company has. 2.5 billion iOS devices, 1.5 billion iPhones. Now it's about ultimately from acquisitions to starting to build out CapEx, partners, and will ultimately be an AI-enabled iPhone as we go into 2027.
Okay, I think obviously Dan is right about that. And by the way, I feel like we've figured out what's going on with Grab. So this is a new regulation that happened this morning. Seeing this right now. Indonesia says platforms' commissions are now 8% maximum on driver rideshare. Yeah, this is obviously the reason right here for why it's getting hit. Grab says they respect the government's direction, but is awaiting formal issuance of the regulation to study its details further. This has been the biggest debate on platforms like Uber and Lyft, where they don't disclose how much money is going to the drivers. And so this regulation in Indonesia, again, that's one of their biggest markets. Yeah, that is obviously the reason why this one's getting hit right here. That would be your answer, 7% down. Now, how is this going to affect the earnings on Monday? Not sure. How is this going to affect the guidance? Obviously, it's not a formal rule yet, but it could become a formal rule. Yeah, there you go. NVIDIA. Why is NVIDIA dumping here as well? Oh my goodness, 198.50. Intel just lost 99. Meta back to going red. That's your argument for Grab. That is pretty obvious why that would be down 7% today. I mean, at least we have a reason for that. 7.3 volume on 31 million shares. Your C limited also getting a little bit of a hit right there. Tesla 387, SPY 723, Meta 611, ARM 213 as well. I guess Nvidia isn't entertaining anymore. I guess not. I guess the market doesn't care. 198.43, down 0.6. AMD also losing 357, but it was at 352. How bad is that news for their growth? Well, it's not necessarily bad for their growth in the context of transaction volumes. It's bad for their margins. Now, again, the fintech business is really where the margins have lifted the entire operating story. But once again, it's just not the story that the street cares about. And any bad headline immediately, imagine if the United States put a regulation like that on DoorDash or something. Obviously, it would be immediately something bad right there. Oracle 169. Oracle, ironically, not getting hit. It's like the data center narrative is holding up the software narrative more than that. Yeah, look, guys, I mean, I will say it again. I've been saying it for the past couple of months. Some of these names aren't where the opportunity is. And obviously that creates an opportunity cost. So you either reevaluate the thesis and say there's a better risk to reward in ServiceNow than a grab, which one could make the argument for. Meta, which is incredibly cheap, could be a better opportunity than a lot of these other smaller names. Or you let the thesis play out for the long term, but the long term means you have to wait, and waiting is not fun. I mean, it's never fun. And obviously, if you're patient when you're waiting and the company performs, you benefit. If not, then there's an opportunity cost. And it is, I mean, Iran has been an opportunity cost versus Nebius and CoreWeave, but the people that have stayed in Iran believe in it. So kind of have to ask yourself, how much do you believe in some of these names when they get an ugly headline like that? Bloom also getting hit. Bloom 277 right there. The other thing about it is, once again, it's international. And, if the street is obsessed with these AI data center plays in America, then, that's probably where they're going to get more of their excitement. Apple 284. You're starting to see red candles across the entire board. S&P as well, losing its high of the day. NVIDIA, maybe it's the Huawei headline. Wow, 197, dude. Goodness gracious. Completely getting wrecked right here. That's a bit concerning why it's going down this quick. But it is. Lots of selling for NVIDIA. I don't see, I'm looking right now for a headline. We talked about the Huawei one in the morning. That was not a good headline. It was bad. But it also is what it is. 197.50. Tesla 387, that one's still holding on. Intel just below 98. Zeta back above 19. ARM at 212. Is oil going back up? It's 1030. That's why. Yeah, that's why. Oil is back above 100. That is correct. Maybe that is your reason. Bitcoin 212.94. Sorry, not Bitcoin. ARM 212.94. BTC 78,000. Could AMD be capturing market share from NVIDIA? Yeah, that could definitely be something happening. Wow, Meta losing 610. I mean, that could be happening in the context of CPUs, but Jensen has already talked so much about how Vera Rubin is a combination of the GPU, CPU. So, when it comes to taking market share, I think the perception is they're taking CPU market share. Same thing with Intel. I think the reality is there's much market share to go around, and NVIDIA has been prepared for this for a long time. But obviously, AMD and Intel are the leaders in CPU. And so if the market, the market is moody. The market can stop caring about CPUs tomorrow for whatever reason, or they can stop caring about memory tomorrow for whatever reason if something you have. So it's one of those things where you have to also follow the trends of where it's playing out. Is Google getting dumped? Google, we were at 384. I It's not dump, but 382. Sorry, 387 to 382. 1030 dumps back in business. SanDisk goes red again. SanDisk goes red again. Okay. We were pretty green in the morning, folks. Pretty freaking green in the morning. And we're still pretty green across a lot of levels, but software's kind of flipping green again. Is this because the semis are selling off? Is this Jane Street? Maybe. Rocket Lab loses 80. Where's the VIX? We were just at 16. VIX is almost back to 17. Almost back to 17. Nebius doesn't care, but it's down a little bit, but still up. What's the headline? I do not see a headline. We looked at the Huawei headline. They expect chip revenue to be up 60% to 12 billion in 2026. That could have been the Iranian, or that could have been the, obviously, NVIDIA headline we talked about in the morning. But there's no Iran update. The only update I have from CNN is Iran's foreign minister is making a bunch of calls to different regional counterparts. Meta just getting wrecked right here. I don't know if that's enough of a headline. Google, it is going down. I mean, also, what? It's Friday. So what tends to happen on Fridays as well. And we pumped pretty hard this week. So Micron falling to 520 can't be that bad when it was at 450 2 weeks ago. Silver still up 3. SoFi almost back below 16. Rock Lab as well, down 4%. Again, the Indonesia regulation is why Grab is getting hit today. The street's going to have to figure out how to factor in that news. Also, on the earnings call on Monday, they're going to have to probably talk about what they think is going to happen based on that headline. Software getting a little bit. S&P was up 1. Now it's up 0.5. Let's see if this downtrend continues, because then you're going to see the big ones fall. And then Apple, yeah, 287 and 283. Apple also down. Selling may go away. Maybe. Showed you guys the stats of that not being true, but there are other stats to support it being true when you're at levels that are at all-time highs. Now, there's other stats that if you're up 5% in April, then you tend to do well. I mean, the data goes both ways. And if people already feel we're a bit overextended, there could be a narrative. Now, the data is on the side of the bulls in the context of historically, because the past 10 Mays have been actually green. But, they could go down a couple percentage points and then recover by the end of May to flip green, even if it's only up 0.1%. On average, it's up 0.5. So that could also be like the intra-month pullback that you see. Snowflake, that was up 4. Now it's up 2. Now it's up 2. Nebius still holding 151 here. Do you think HOOD support is at 65 or 60? I think if Bitcoin gives out, yeah, HOOD is below 70. We talked about the earnings over the past couple of days, but it just wasn't good enough, in my opinion, to easily get multiple expansion. Granted, April's going to be better. The April quarter is going to be better. But if May and June suck for trading, Q2 is not going to be better. And that's the hard reality has to deal with. Same thing that SoFi said on their call. If they don't see rate cuts coming soon, they're keeping their guidance, but they're not going to be able to beat their guidance. This was the first quarter SoFi didn't beat on EPS in a while, right? It's been a minute since they haven't beat on EPS. And it feels like that's what's happening here. Is this the headline? CNN investigation finds Iran and its allies have damaged at least 16 U.S. military installations across 8 Middle Eastern countries. I feel like that would be old news because they were attacking for the past month, or I should say in March, if not even in April. So finding that some military bases got hit shouldn't be something new for the market. SanDisk red, Google red. Either AI stocks are about to crash or Nvidia's about to make a 20% run. I mean, what would we default? All right. Do you think Nvidia is going to go up to, let's call it 220? What do you think is more likely? Nvidia to 220 or AI stocks to take a 5% pullback from these levels? It just sucks because Nvidia, barely participated. And I mean, when it was at 218, it was starting to participate. And now it's right back to where it was at the beginning of the month. These other stocks, even if they take a pullback, they'll be at a level that's materially higher. Even Micron, goes down from 530 to 500. CoreWeave still holding on to 119. I feel like pullback. It's been fun investing starting in October 2025. Look, you joined at a very weird time in the market. October 2025 was a top short term. It's never fun joining at a top. I think I basically joined at a top. I mean, I cared about the market since 2018, but put real money in November 2021, which pound was like $25, which now looks great, but back then it was ugly. You get humbled and then you live through it, which I think is better than getting into a raging bull. Like a lot of people that joined in 2020, it didn't feel real. And I know people say 2023 to 2025 hasn't been real. You can point to the earnings to combat that. But 2022, definitely when you get slapped by 50%, feels like, hey, if you still stay after you experience that, then it means it's somewhat psychopathic enough to love the markets. My camera died. Why did my camera die? This is so bearish. My camera never dies. This is the first time it's died in a while. That is crazy. Okay, we're going to do the MacBook camera. How long is it? Did it just happen? Dude, this camera, it's an old camera, but it can go for like 7 hours straight. That's weird today. That's bearish. That's weird. We need I need more HBM for my camera. It's not a Temu camera. It's a $1,600 camera, even though it's 6 years old. I bought new cameras and they don't work as well as this old camera in terms of just reliability. But I guess this is what we got. All right, let's hear a little bit about Anthropic's valuation that's trying to go to $900 billion. Get a better update on why that is valued at that level.
That Anthropic is looking to raise funds at a $900 billion valuation. Let's bring in Byron Dieter, partner at Bessemer Venture Partners and an Anthropic investor. Byron, why would the company want to raise money now in the private market at $900 billion valuation if they're looking to go public at $1 trillion valuation later this year?
Great to be back with you, Sarah. And I can't comment specifically on a financing, but let me say that we're all watching history here together. No business has grown faster or gotten to this scale, not only in tech, but in the broader business sector. And so it's no surprise that demand is strong for Anthropic shares, whether private or public. If you think about entry points on a relative basis, if there was truth to the speculation of this 900 billion number, on a multiple basis, this would actually be the cheapest point ever. And so you could make a case that despite this massive growth, them overtaking OpenAI and their leadership, that this would be the most compelling entry point into the name.
Wait, why? What numbers are you looking at for when you say that?
So what the company shared, they went from 9 billion to 30 billion last end of year last year to last month. So over 3.5 months, they added 20 plus billion of run rate. It took Salesforce 20.
This morning, that was reported at 44 billion. So, I mean, that could be even crazier than what we think.
Years to do that. Their plan for this year that they'd shared was about 30 billion, which they hit 4 months into the year. And so whether you're projecting 60 billion or 100 billion, pick a number for the year, you're looking at, call it a 10x entry point into the stock for a company growing 1,000%. You don't see that in the markets, public or private. You haven't seen that in history. And so that's what's created this insatiable demand for the Anthropic stock. You see immense buying pressure as people are trying to source SPVs and secondary shares and all sorts of creative things. The company gets all sorts of unsolicited inbound daily. And it's because this is the first of its kind, literally, that we have ever seen. and it's a unique name, and people are excited about it.
So what about, I mean, so is it not a problem that the Pentagon still designates it as supply chain risk? I know Mythos is a separate kind of issue that the government is working on, but doesn't that doesn't hurt the valuation and the future prospects?
We're all navigating this space together. There's all sorts of dynamics that are going to come as we're figuring out the regulatory environment for AI, the commercial environment for AI, the technological challenges. From our perspective, they've navigated things incredibly well. It's not going to be without bumps and challenges, but they are now the leader in the space. And so the burden's on them. And if you look at the best team, the best platform, the best values, we're excited to be backing them to chart this course for our industry and for us collectively as a population.
Byron, everyone's seen probably the charts of downloads of Claude versus OpenAI and just the degree to which you've narrowed that spread in a remarkable short period of time. What do you think accounts for that?
Their leadership on those dimensions. And so it's not only the Claude product, which you see directly, but also their enterprise and API businesses. They're now the leader. They've passed OpenAI. They are the #1 AI platform in the world, and the slope of the line is steeper. And so it's now upon them to chart this course. And if you look at the markets voting with their dollars and with their tokens and with their API connectivity, they believe Claude is the right answer for the future here ahead.
Do you think that things like a social media platform, an advertising business, hardware are distractions from a good model?
The exciting thing here is there's going to be all sorts of innovation. And so I give credit to many of our competitors that are experimenting with multiple options. It's very clear what Anthropic's true north is, but there are so many ways that you could take this, and they likely will. It's applicable to many verticals, many layers in the stack. But I also think what's valuable here is an ecosystem is going to develop. We're going to see this wave of application companies built on top. Anthropic's got a vibrant partner ecosystem. We've probably got 50 portfolio companies that are built on or with Claude. And we absolutely expect that 1,000 flowers are going to bloom here, and you're going to see immense business growth while the foundation model continues to grow and build this platform, much like we saw in the cloud wave with the hyperscalers and Amazon and GCP and Azure. But
is anyone afraid at all that the cloud companies or the AI foundation model companies are pumping a little too hard into their IPO, NVIDIA getting back to 200, which Nebius 153. I mean, like Anthropic IPOing now at 1.5, 1.2 trillion because they're raising at 900 billion and then getting fast tracked into the S&P and the NASDAQ. Like, do they just deserve it or it doesn't matter? Because we've never really seen $1 trillion IPOs like that then get pushed into the indices that quickly. And obviously, yes, there's a massive bull case on the business itself. We all get that. But I don't know. That's also, you got a lot of people saying that's really when things get too juicy during those IPO cycle. And really, SpaceX is going to be the test. Can that one actually go public successfully? Because look, Pershing Square wasn't a successful IPO. They wanted 50. They got 43. I mean, I don't know what the entry price of SpaceX is going to be, but imagine it's 400 and it comes in at 320. Like, imagine the demand just isn't there. And, the investment bankers will try to make sure the demand is there. But at the end of the day, people have to go out and buy the stock and believe in it at whatever valuation it's coming up at. Tesla almost 390. So I think SpaceX will be the test to see if OpenAI and Anthropic can actually put up results. Even though, yes, they're growing faster than SpaceX. These models going public feels toppy. Valuations have been outrageous. Yeah, I mean, again, OpenAI and Anthropic are going to go public at a trillion, 1.2. Meta's at 1.5, and they do 100 billion of operating cash flow. And OpenAI and Anthropic have no operating cash flow. So, I mean, but again, they have way more growth than Meta. So that's what the street's gonna care about. SPY 722. Fastly, I think, has earnings in a week, 26.45. That's up 4% on the day. Why is Zandu ripping? This is a quantum Chinese company, right? Chinese quantum stock. This thing is up year to date 200%. Sorry, no, Canadian quantum company. This has been the biggest runner this year in quantum out of all of them. And I don't fully understand this one versus D-Wave as much, but this one's gotten the majority of love. They had a couple big partnerships as well. Quantum photonics. Let's just put every buzzword together. Quantum photonic data center ecosystem infrastructure play. But yeah, there you go. That's what that's up. I mean, again, you got to believe in quantum if you buy these things. Trading has been probably easy given this thing has kept going up and up and up, but as an investment, it's different. Ask Tanner, he's Canadian. Do I guarantee if I ask Tanner what is Xandu Quantum Technologies, he'll get mad at even asking him the question. He'll be like, dude, I don't care. Tanner will tell you straight up, dude. Like, you might ask me, Amit, what do you think of this stock? And I'll try to give the best answer I can, even if I don't know about it. Tanner, when I watch his streams, like, Tanner, what do you think about it? It's like, I don't care. He just moves on. It's like hilarious. It's like, Tanner, what do you think about VG? It's like, well, I don't care about oil and gas. Next. It's like, you know what? It's respectable. It's respectable. I will try to give some opinion on oil and gas. Tanner just doesn't give a fuck. He's like, dude, I don't care about this. I'm not going to even spend a second worrying about it. Shopify, 125. 125. Amit, you have the debate skills that taught us to talk about topics we know nothing about. Yes, exactly. Exactly. But I'm also inquisitive, right? Like, I don't know that much about VG, but I'll try to learn a little bit about it so I can speak on it, at least discuss bull case, bear case. But there's also investors that just, they're so focused on what they care about, which is important because sometimes you need to dial into the shit you know about and not get distracted by a variety of things. And part of the reason retail has done so well is because retail's really picked 2 or 3 stocks. I think the average retail investor has picked probably 2 or 3 names over the past 3 years and just dialed, literally, me, Pounter, and Hood, dialing in on those 2 stories. And that's what got you to get some more momentum versus caring about every single story that's out there. Google, 385. 385. BlackBerry is up 70% this month. That is also went green. Nebius, my goodness, 153. Stock Talk's probably not going to be market close today. Probably next week. He's a little bit busy today, but next week he will be on the show. Probably like on a Wednesday market close. I'll try to schedule exactly, but I was talking to him last night. AMD, is that kind of green still? 352. What are your thoughts on Adobe? I don't care. Adobe. Look, again, the issue with Adobe here is Firefly does not seem to be growing at the level that people thought it was growing at. $25 billion buyback, not that exciting over the next 6 years or 4 years, whatever they tend to do it for. And then, the other interesting thing about Adobe, once again, is how much of that operating cash flow, everyone likes to point to the free cash flow of Adobe, which the yield on the free cash flow is spectacular. How much of that is going to be used to set up the next evolution of, where they think design is going? Because when you see what Claude comes out with their design models and how they can integrate that into, basically a lot of teams that would be using Adobe and Figma for mockups. If it's all in one integrated ecosystem, I wonder if it's built on top of Adobe or Adobe partners with them. I know Adobe has said they partner with them, but how much does that partnership actually drive growth? Or is it just a story of free cash flow and buybacks and 10% year-over-year growth? Is it cheap? Yes. I think ServiceNow is cheaper because it's growing faster, but Oracle back to 170. Adobe's got to get that growth rate to at least somewhat become normal. Also, the CEO leaving, I think the street's going to want to test the new CEO. So, that's an issue. Intel, 100. There it is. Triple digits for Mr. Intel. 6%, $503 billion market cap. As This was destiny, right? It was destiny when Trump invested at 20 for Intel to go to 100. Like it kind of had to happen. How is this the top of Intel? I don't know. Feels a little toppy, but maybe that doesn't matter. Intel only goes up. Intel only goes up. It was destiny, but it wasn't my destiny. I mean, dude, if it's going to $1 trillion, there's still a double left in it. It's just who has the stomach to buy this at 100. Intel 100. 100 here for Mr. Intel. Steve's hurt the worst from this because now it was funny, but I remember Steve was on my stream back at the end of 2024 talking about Intel when it was like dead at $18. And really the pushback, it really is price action over sentiment. Because the pushback he got in the comments, I remember I wasn't really taking a position bullish or bearish because I just didn't know much about Intel CPUs. But Steve, saw the .com bubble, he saw Intel go, so he was very bullish on it. He didn't end up buying it, which he's mad about. But the pushback in the comments was like, this guy's a boomer, he doesn't understand anything, Intel's trash, it's Nvidia's market. Like if Intel didn't make a move, the positive sentiment wouldn't be there. Like it is so rooted in price action. So rooted in price action. If Micron didn't make a move, the narrative would once again be that it's cyclical. So who cares? Like it deserves a lower premium. Once these names make the move, the entire narrative changes. It's hard to find people that are bullish before the narrative changes. And really there weren't a lot for Intel. Now, when Trump invested, I think more people just followed Trump, but yet still people believing, really, is Intel going to, put up the results that justified getting a $500 billion market cap? Amazon loses 270 here. And Rocket Lab down 2.3. These are fun when you're already holding it, but not fun otherwise. It's like a washing machine, you're winning lottery ticket. Yeah, exactly. What if Trump dumps Intel on us at these levels? You can't tell me the White House isn't thinking of taking some profits here. Right? Like they're up 35 billion. Would be crazy as a taxpayer that contributes to a society. I would take some profits here. Technically, again, if you're American, you own Intel. Your taxes allow you, your taxes have funded, literally, our taxes have funded this Intel purchase. SanDisk down to AOI got a deal yesterday from Texas. I think it was 2 days ago. That's why that one's getting a big move right there. 9%, 179. The thing is, even if he sold it, and first of all, if he sold it, the stock would crash because as soon as people find out the White House is out, I mean, that's another kind of house of cards situation. They would have to sell it strategically. If they sold the entire position, stock's going back down to 30. Like everyone would run out of it. Second of all, if they even sold like 5% of the position, it would take a hit because A, that's a big position, but B, people would be like, why is Trump getting out of it? Then C, what would they do with the money? Like what, they're going to pay off the debt, pay off the $40 trillion debt with a couple $1 billion. Like it's not even going to make any sense. So maybe the best thing to do is just let it stay there. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. No. No. No, no, no. Spirit Airlines fails to receive a $500 million government bailout. Spirit prepares to cease operations as rescue deal collapses. Damn. Spirit Airlines deal fell apart with the federal government as per the Wall Street Journal. I'm surprised it's only down 7. You'd think this would be down like 30, 40% here. Why are you sad about Spirit? Well, I don't know. It's like a lot of people thought Donnie T would save this thing. A lot of people thought Donnie T would have a chance to save it. I mean, he saved Intel, right? What happened to the airlines? The airlines just didn't Well, their airlines obviously, they went bankrupt like 5 times. That's the issue. And so they have 14,000 employees. They're still functioning, but they're ready to shut down business if they don't have a lifeline. And 500 million is not even that much money for the government. So that's weird that the deal fell apart completely. Steve in the chat, have Nancy trade the money that was made on Intel? Yes, Nancy should manage that 33 billion if we took profits. That's fair. I do not have calls on Spirit. I don't even know how to buy Spirit, okay? It's on freaking OTC exchanges. I only have a Robinhood account. I don't even know how you get access to FlyQ, FLYYQ. But that is ugly, dude. Spirit Airlines prepares to shut down as rescue deal falls apart. Yeah, the government said, yeah, we're good enough. We have enough airlines. Well, could you even buy it on IBKR, or did you have to go through a different platform? Like Schwab allows OTC, I think. IBKR allows a lot more of the international stocks. A lot of people have been saying Robinhood needs to allow international. I agree, dude. I think like Robinhood, there's a lot of things they're focused on. If they could just bring like SK Hynix and all these names that are part of this AI revolution in Taiwan, like via not just the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange, but through all the other exchanges, the Kospi, et cetera, the Nikkei, so that people can buy. I mean, I would imagine trading volumes would go up a lot. Now, maybe there's some regulatory stuff, but if IBKR can do it, why can't Robinhood do it? So it would be nice for them to do that. JetBlue, is that getting hit? JetBlue is up 6. That one's up a little bit. American Airlines, that's up a little bit. So the other airlines are pumping because less competition from Spirit, I guess. Yeah, Fidelity offers them as well. Okay, Spirit's done. Now, again, this is not final. This is Wall Street Journal reporting. So maybe the journal's wrong on this, but it looks like their sources seem legit. A $500 million government bailout faltered as the discount carrier ran low on cash and bondholders backed out. AMD 246. Yeah, the other airlines are pumping, obviously, because they have less competition now with Spirit. Has anyone taken a Spirit flight before? I've taken it twice, and both times I've regretted every second of being on the flight, which is also part of the reason why it's hard to be an investor in them. Elon should buy them. Elon was talking about buying Ryanair. Elon should buy them. The other thing is, dude, that's 14,000 jobs. I mean, you don't want to see those get hit that easily. And Trump even mentioned not wanting to see those jobs go away. But NVIDIA, once again, red. Once again, red. Light pumping, Lumentum, 964. This is another big photonics play. This one goes up and down like 10% every other day, though, to be honest. Today it's going up 6.9%. As that is green. Jason says, I don't fit in their seats. Oh my gosh, Jason. Okay, yes, if you're a little bit bigger, it's a little hard to fit in those seats. That's fair. It's a fair point. But I remember I went from New Jersey to Texas back in 2017, and I just like, I was broke, dude. I needed a cheap flight. I needed a cheap flight. It was like $70, like $70, dude. This is great. Got on there, dude. For $70, I was praying that my life was going to be okay. This wasn't worth 70, bro. This was not worth $70. Like me battling with my existence, I was thinking about all the good memories I had in life. I was like, you know what? I would have rather paid $300 and not had to worry. Ever since then, I've been United every time. I'm going to do United. I'm going to United with Singapore. Like United is the one I trust. That's it. We're not chancing it with Spirit. Palantir 143.50. 143.50. Parsable says, thank God I can afford first class now. I still have never gone first class. I still feel like it's weird to go first class. But obviously it's much more relaxing when you do that. Corey 120. Okay, so the little spike down we had is like still there, 722.35, still down 0.5% or up 0.5%. It was up 1%, but individual names are still pretty green. Robinhood's green, AppLovin, Iren, CoreWeave, Roku, IBM, Dell, Snap, Viavi, Seagate. It was up a lot more, but it's still up. So whatever red we're seeing is not really that disgusting. Even software getting a little bit of a rebound, but Amazon's instead of 272, it's at 268, but still up $3, right? Not horrible. Not horrible. You got to go first class to Singapore. Dude, the tickets already were expensive for Singapore. I paid like freaking $2,500. Doing another upgrade would be crazy. I feel like for me, if I'm just sleeping and like, I don't know, listening to podcasts, I don't really need to be in first class. Like, I just feel like I'm not like, oh my goodness, I need to stretch my legs or something. It's like, I'll be okay. I'll be all right. But I get it. There's some people who just don't care about dealing with any pain on a flight. Right at 162, still up 10. Still up 10. Yeah, we covered that NVIDIA, Microsoft, Amazon signed an AI deal with the Pentagon. This is basically just licensing their models. It wasn't anything too serious. So, I mean, that headline definitely didn't help pump NVIDIA today. How long is the flight to Singapore? We have to go to San Francisco first, then Singapore. So it's like 20, 22 hours. Why does this guy look like... Who is this guy? They got a new analyst here? They had a Morgan Stanley guy look like Steve a while ago. Is this our new Steve doppelganger?
Memory, and they have consumer customers, not enterprises. Enterprises and cloud customers, they're not as price sensitive. They're just going to buy the memory because they have to.
So you think this move today is what, not sustainable necessarily?
No, I think it's a very good sign that it's up this much, even though it doesn't seem like much.
He's got the same hair a little bit.
The last several quarters, they've had very good guides. The stock has either been flat to down. I still hear from all my investors that this stock is, at the bottom of the Mag 7 ranking. So I think it wouldn't take a lot into this June developers conference to get some people excited.
On, if not margins, at least some AI strategies?
Well, that's going to be the big tell or reveal, let's say.
In June.
In June, I would hope that they're planning on at least something to give the investor community and consumers some excitement of, look, we've got new products coming in the fall, and we've got AI that we've been working on and can really hopefully bring us into the conversation of an AI player. Up until now, it's like a work in progress.
Is this early sketching of Turnus as a hardware devotee and that a potential return to hardware greatness, is that too glib in these early days?
I mean, it could be, but I think there's a reason they chose him over someone else. From speaking to investors, I think they believe his choice makes a lot of sense to actually move from Tim Cook, who was a supply chain master, to move someone into the role that's going to be a very, experienced person on the innovation and hardware side.
The question is, do you trust John Turnus with innovating for Apple? I don't know. We got to do some more research on if he's the guy, but obviously Apple still had massive earnings. Tesla today, along with Apple, what is causing the Tesla pump? By the way, U.S. Treasury has just issued new Iran-related sanctions. That might have been the headline that caused a little bit of a downturn 20 minutes ago. New sanctions while we're negotiating. Maybe not the best for escalation. Tesla, I don't see the headline. This was at what, 360 last week? Around about 365. Sachin says Intel has run too fast, too much on too little execution and external factors that requires years of razor sharp execution, which Intel has struggled for years despite recent improvements. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like Intel was a follow Trump and Jensen trade more than anything, but the people buying it here might continue to be right. It's just fundamentally, could you make a case for it? I don't know. But again, 60-50, it was hard to make that case too. And the server CPU stack is what changed the narrative. Apple 282, Tesla 392. I don't see any Tesla headline, but that is green. That is green. Another headline from CNN: Iran remains deeply distrustful of the U.S. Iranian source tells CNN. One Iranian source told CNN that Tehran could see talks restarting if the U.S. lifts its blockade of Iranian ports and Iran fully reopens the Strait of Hormuz. U.S. warns shippers that paying tolls for Strait of Hormuz passage puts them at risk of sanctions. Wow. The U.S. going after anyone that's paying Iran any money here. You know, I feel like 3 weeks ago, if Trump had just gotten rid of the blockade when the Iranians officially opened the strait, that was like 3 Fridays ago, right? Or 2 Fridays ago, maybe we would have made more progress. But he didn't do it. And the Iranians did. They did open the strait, like officially. We saw ships go through. It was like 40 ships that one day. But the fact that the blockade didn't go away, I think pissed them off. And then boom, we ended up at a stalemate. So maybe round 2. I think Trump's not getting rid of the blockade because he doesn't want to seem weak. But to me, it's not really weak if they do their job, you do your job, right? Both sides leave and then you get a deal. But unfortunately, that's the issue right now. Why would the U.S. get rid of the blockade if Iran's not giving up their nukes? Well, again, right, it's a negotiation. One side has to give a little, the other side has to give a little, and then you come back to talking. And then, I mean, if Iran doesn't come to the table, then you put on the blockade again, right? But at least you take it off. You know, maybe there's a whole nother reason they didn't do it, but like it seems like that 2 Fridays ago was the big thing that caused the split. Because the Iranians were like, dude, we opened the strait. You guys didn't get rid of the blockade. And Trump was like, I'm not going to get rid of it until you sign a deal. And they were like, well, we're not going to sign a deal until you get rid of the blockade. And then they're both stuck. And I wonder if maybe both sides have to finally capitulate to get a deal. Micron, back to 530. Back to 530. If I have to price AMD like Intel, it would be $1,000 stock. Both CPU and GPU excellence are far ahead for Intel, as per Sachin. Yeah, I mean, if AMD got Intel's multiple, that would be a lot higher. A lot higher. Bongo's up 4, Palo Alto's up 1, IBM's up 1. The software names holding on to a little bit of a pump, but not what they had in the pre-market. IGV at 85. S&P 722. Zoom did cross 100 because of dude. It's kind of comical, but if you took a trade on Zoom, at what, a month ago they were at 77. You're up 30%, 25%. The reason they're up as like this also, I don't know if it's rational. I mean, it is rational, but it feels toppy. Like they invested in Anthropic. The core business of Zoom has not grown for 2 years. They literally grow 1% every quarter in terms of revenue. There's nothing exciting about it. It was a pandemic-driven meme stock. But because they made that Anthropic investment, the stock goes up as a proxy to Anthropic. Like it's quite incredible. But you can make 30% on your money in a month just by betting that Anthropic's valuation would go up and then playing a proxy via Zoom out of all companies. Like that just feels like there's a lot of liquidity out there, but it also feels like there's so much demand for Anthropic that Zoom will catch the bait. Because make no mistake, there is no other reason why Zoom is going up. There's nothing, like absolutely nothing. You know, I know some people have tried to paint the bull case on it, and yeah, fair, it's been in a 60-70 range for like 2 years, but the breakout didn't happen because of earnings. It happened because they invested $50 million in Anthropic in 2023. It's worth almost $10 billion right now. So it is quite incredible that played out. Kevin, thanks for the super chat. Amid, appreciate the play-by-play in the morning. I'm a work-from-home dad, and I listen while I'm getting my 3-year-old ready without being stuck to the screen. Have a black coffee or whiskey on me. Kevin, appreciate you being part of the show every day. And I know yesterday sucked because we didn't have the background noise here. It sucked for me too. I hated not being able to do the show. But I do appreciate being there every day. And for everyone else being here every day as well. Don't drink black coffee, though. I don't drink whiskey either. So I will have some water instead on you. Even though, again, the Jack Daniels honey is my favorite whiskey. D-Wave trying a little bit. Trying a little bit, 20.5. Instant coffee, guys. I stopped drinking the instant coffee too. I had my phase and then it just faded away. Like, I'm so bad with this stuff. Like, the people that drink coffee every day, you guys are like religious about it. I can't do it. Like, I got bored of it. Yeah, Zoom is now an Anthropic treasury company. No, but so that's literally what it's being treated as, an Anthropic treasury company. I mean, I think if someone made an Anthropic treasury company right now, which you have all these VC funds doing it, like, it probably would explode in some respect every time this got revalued. Don't get addicted to coffee. Well, you don't have to worry about that. It's hard for me to even drink it. Yeah, Spirit is down 71%, down 10% on the day. Again, grab Indonesia regulations are screwing them this morning. Street's gonna have to figure out how much they believe in it. Does it call into question the entire thesis? I think we got to wait till Q1. Let's see what some of these results look like. It always sucks questioning the thesis at the lows because, there's been many times you get questioned a lot of theses when the stocks were at the lows, only for them to rip up higher because that's when sentiment is the worst. But nonetheless, I think those earnings will be important to see the flexibility in their loan book, which is the main thing. Their cash loans also, which they unveiled at their GrabX event. It's just going to be very, very strong growth. I mean, the fintechs in Southeast Asia, especially in Singapore, grow nicely because of the underdeveloped part of the region and mixing with the developed part of the region. But also, how much does the street want to value that? And again, the analysts, they all have $7 to $8 as their price target. Just hasn't been able to get that premium. United Airlines up 4.3. That's also up on the Spirit Airlines news going down. Nebby is still one. Wow, Nebby is 154, dude. Talk about a dip that just didn't let you wait for more. 132.70 was the bottom. What a beast, dude. What a freaking beast. This is good stuff to see if you're like heavy in Nebbies, because you want to see the thesis get tested and then have the bull step in, right? Because the more the bulls step in, the more it proves that people are willing to buy a dip. It's a massive recovery from those lows. ALMU, kind of similar to Poet, that's up 9% today. Poet is up 1%, back above 7. Fell below the $7 range a while ago. Iran's still kind of stuck, obviously. 47.25, at least up on the day. This was almost below 40 a couple days ago. Is Micron cheap here? Yes. Forward multiples cheap. Do you want to buy that chart is the bigger question. Just like SanDisk was cheap, did you want to buy that chart? And if you did, I mean, you're still green on the day, even if it's 1%. I think the big story of the day, though, is Apple. Like that re-accelerating revenue growth. U.S. Atlanta Fed GDP now 3.5 for Q2. They're projecting versus 3.7. 3.5 versus 3.7. The big story is Apple, right? If Apple continues to accelerate revenue, it's a big component of the S&P. I think we grew GDP on Thursday at, what, 2%, 2.3? A little bit lower than expected. What do you think is going on with Intel? EPS was crazy. Might sell NVIDIA and buy Intel since they're finally catching up. Yeah, see, like I can't do that. It's hard. Maybe Intel goes to $1 trillion before NVIDIA gets to $6 trillion, which would obviously be a better return, but it would be tough, dude, to sell NVIDIA here and buy Intel. Maybe it's not that tough, though. Maybe it's just playing momentum, right? Because NVIDIA doesn't have the momentum. But like, if we're speaking fundamentally, not trading, it would be tough to just let it rip like that. I feel like AMD even would be a better bet just because, their multiples a little bit more reasonable. Unless multiples don't matter. Unless it doesn't matter. Here's another update right here. Karg Island. This is another reason Iran eventually has to capitulate, you would think. Iran is filling tankers with oil to store it in the Karg Island. This is something Trump knows is going to be an issue for them, which is why that blockade continues to be in place. You can see right there. Obviously not the best for Iran. Pentagon confirms Oracle participation in their AI effort. Oracle 171.90. There you go, Oracle. A little bit of a bid up there. That'd be like selling Google to buy Yahoo. Yeah, I don't know, dude. See, we're in a weird part of the market now where people want to chase the names that are running, especially because people feel they've missed a lot of these runs. And I think that's fair, right? Like, if you miss SanDisk, you miss Micron, you miss Intel, like you start to get a lot of FOMO. It starts to get annoying. If you're stuck in a SoFi or a Hood or a Grab or a Rocket Lab or a Meta, which I can't even believe I'm saying that, but if you're stuck in a Meta, like it starts to become annoying when a Bloom Energy has run this much. But that is, I feel like, when emotions are tested the most. And you ask yourself, like, hey, is this really the time where I should be rotating? Like, do I rotate out of Meta at 615 for ARM at 213? ARM's up 150%. Meta's red on the year. I don't know. I don't know. It might still be okay to do the rotation here because this year might just end up being a year for the semis. And that means anything that's not in it or even not even adjacent enough in it is out of favor. But it also might be really toppy to just bet on those names at these levels. AXTI as well, 17%. That is also green. Yeah, Lumentum, these photonics plays. Depends on your time horizon. That's also the thing, right? Like, people who are buying Meta are probably buying it for the next, I would imagine, at least 5 to 10 years. Are you buying Qualcomm at 172 for the next 5 to 10 years? Or are you buying it because it jumped from 140 to 170 and you're like, all right, it's going up? I would imagine it's the latter more than the former. And maybe that's still going to be okay. But it once again begs the question of if this semiconductor core market is what's playing out. We have an update on the stock draft, folks. We have officially taken first place. Even with some ugly drawdowns right here, we got about 45 days until this ends. Matt's at 33. I am at 35.9. Nebius, AMD, and Apple. Oh, I forgot I had Apple. Yeah, Apple, all-time highs today. That's doing the work. Steve's at 19. Steve was at like 7 a couple of weeks ago. Micron has just carried him to the glory. Tanner's at 9. ServiceNow, that's hurting him. And then TTD, that's hurting him. And then Chris was at like -3. Chris was negative for a while. So Chris has made a massive turnaround at 17. Oracle, Google, and Marvell. Even UNH finally going green for him as well. So now we got to defend first place. We got to see. Obviously, Matt has the tailwind of the SpaceX IPO that could pump Rocket Lab and ASTS to the moon. Also, he does have SoFi, which unfortunately that one's been hit. Celsius also has been a big loser, and then Dutch Bros. For me, obviously, Duolingo. If that wasn't there, I think this thing would be like 45, 47%. But even with the 76 drawdown, we're coming in at 35. And then Robinhood went red for me. Grab went red. Visa went red, but Visa started to recover a bit. Apple, Nebius, AMD have helped out. Who took SanDisk? No one ended up taking SanDisk, but Steve got the closest with Micron. Steve's is so funny. It's like 8 out of 10 names, just bloody red. And then 2 of them, that's all you need. Mine's is also funny because I have something that's down 80% and somehow we're holding up. And then, Chris was down for a long time, but then Google, UNH, Marvell, Axon, or Oracle, they came right back. That's what we got. We will do this again in June. And we'll try to do it for a second year in a row and see how it goes. NVIDIA still red, below 200. Goodness gracious, bro. Just ugly. Just so ugly. Someone bought 2.1 million of Palantir calls for May 22nd, 150 strike. Okay, getting some option flows coming in. Why is NVIDIA down? I don't know. I can't explain why a lot of these random smaller semi names are pumping today. I mean, I can kind of explain it based on some of the headlines, but you would think that would help NVIDIA as well. It's just not. And I don't know. That's what kind of keeps me on edge a little bit. Like, is it sustainable for ARM to keep going up 2-3% every day and for NVIDIA to be flat? Does NVIDIA break out and ARM goes down, or does NVIDIA match the breakout with all the other semis? Or like Bloom just flipped green again. Smaller semiconductor energy play, I guess, for data centers. That flips up. Google just flipping green. But the big guy can't hold it. Is Intel back at 100? Intel very close to 100. Maybe got options on NVIDIA. Yeah, and look, I get it's a big company, but all of these companies are smaller, and the only reason they're going up is because of, at the end of the day, NVIDIA, right? The heart of the AI ecosystem. And it was just at 218, so it's like the fact that it just reversed all of that after the Vipers goes up, we're increasing CapEx. It's like hard to understand what is the street upset about. They all said they're going to be spending more and more money on your stuff. And yes, it's also going to go to Broadcom and AMD, and it's going to be spread out, but it's not like it's, at the end of the day, not going back to NVIDIA. But the S&P being held up today here from Apple. All right, I think that is it for today. I will be back on the close. NVIDIA getting the biggest hit out of the semis, but Intel is up 5, SanDisk up half, Micron up 2, Zoom up 5 on Anthropic, Meta flipping a little green, SoFi flipping up 1% right here, maybe getting a little bit of an 1130 reversal, even though we are still red in certain sectors. Microsoft going green, Palantir trying to get back to 145. And most of these names still staying slightly green. When did you start the competition? June of last year. So it is a year that we had the competition. Even Nike getting a little bit of love. Look, overall, even if some stocks that people are in are red, it's been a great April. And the most important thing is the market got enough big tech juice to feel that this premium is deserved. Hopefully some of these other smaller names catch up to it. Opportunity cost definitely sucks. FOMO definitely sucks, but is it a healthy market or not is the question. And I think more people would say, given the big tech earnings, it feels healthier than not. Feels healthier than not. Word of the day. We'll be back on the close. We'll have a new basis points out later tonight. So we'll have all that going out. You guys can see the exposed bricks. They are real, even if they don't look real. Seeing is not believing. Believing is believing. So that's the important thing. Refulgent. Shining brightly, radiant, or glowing. After months of grind, the results felt refulgent. Quiet work, visible payoff. How do you say this? Refulgent.
Refulgent.
Why is the E a UH? It's a refulgent.
Refulgent.
Okay. I guess we're turning E's into U's at this point, but there you go. That's our word of the day. Refulgent. I'll be back on the close. We'll see what we've got going on. We'll try to understand a little bit more of this macro, try to understand everything that's playing out. I mean, if we can end the first day of May on a green note, that would be very, very nice. Again, some of these stocks starting to finally flip out and maybe make a little bit more of a breakout. Oracle going green, Robinhood going green, Tesla 392. Got NVIDIA still red, but lots of other parts of the market holding on, and hopefully we stay green. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I will be back on the market close. We'll keep going from there. Bye, everybody. Have a good one.